Hello, everyone. I'm Roderick Schrock. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the executive director of iBeam, and I'm so excited you are here to join us as we kick off day 3 of From the Rupture, Ideas and Actions for the Future, a 4-day arts and ideas festival celebrating the ambitious and inventive works of our Phase 2 fellows, resulting from this inaugural fully digital fellowship, Rapid Response for a Better Digital Future. You know, it's hard to read a room online, but I will say that the excitement, even as I'm experiencing it digitally, is palpable for what we have in store today. And what an amazing group that is already in attendance. It's great to see you all here. I'd like to describe myself for any guests who are blind or low vision. I have brown and gray hair, cut short but floppy on top of my head, as well as brown and gray stubble on my cheeks and around my lips. I'm a white man and have freckles on my face and light skin. I don't wear eyeglasses, but I have thick eyebrows. In my time at iBeam, this is one of our most experimental and exciting initiatives, and I can't begin to express my appreciation for our team's incredible work on making this possible. This initiative began when, at the onset of the crisis last year, iBeam put out a call challenging artists to imagine and then begin to build a better digital future for all. On this new platform, From the Rupture is launching the responses and inventions of 8 of those artists, 2 per day, who rose to the call to offer inspiring possibilities for new relationships with technology. So I would like to start with an access check and to orient you to the platform we've created here in collaboration with Trust Berlin as a site for this expansive community of radical practitioners spanning the fields of public policy, journalism, healthcare, and more to convene over these days. There are a number of iBeam staff members supporting today's event, so I hope you'll feel free to reach out to them in the chat box should you need anything or have any technical difficulties getting connected. Today's gathering is being captioned, and I want to say hello to Faith and Bonnie, our captioners for this event. We also have ASL provided by Veronica and Alana, who are here from LC Interpreting. Thanks to you all. My colleague Idan will be posting information in the chat box around access for this event, along with helping answer any technical questions throughout the day. We also encourage you to use this space as a digital guest book to introduce yourself to your fellow attendees, dropping in from literally all over the world. Please take a moment to share where you're from. It would be great to just have a sense of who's tuning in from where. It's been an incredibly geographically diverse group over these last days, and I'm sure today will be no exception. Today's session, Digital Intimacies, Reimagining Performance and Modes of Connection, will dive into an array of discussions that consider performance and engagement in the age of COVID-19, interspecies communication, and how new technology can support intimacy in the absence of physical proximity, among other topics. It's hosted by my friend Lauren Ruffin. We will hear from a range of incredible speakers, including our fellows Appian, Volumetric Performance Toolbox, before their projects launch later this afternoon, beginning at 4:30. So the project launches are at 4:30 p.m. New York time. The conversations and dialogue in the lead up are starting in just a few moments. Throughout the talks, you're welcome to post reflections in the chat box, which should be towards the right side of your screen. We've also created a space for ongoing informal conversations and Q&A sessions unfolding throughout the day. You can find this in our attendee lounge, which you can enter at any time via the top left-hand corner of the screen. Some amazing conversations have been happening in the lounge, and I encourage you all to drop in and say hi. So feel free to join at any time you need a break or just want to chat. Often the speakers from the day, from the main stage, will join there as well. And it's a great opportunity for direct conversation. iBeam is committed to being intentional about the digital spaces in which we convene. This hub site that we are all experiencing right now was built in collaboration with the design group Trust Berlin and is an outcome of efforts that reflected upon what it means to support artists and serve our communities virtually in 2021 and beyond. This site was also built to be accessible to blind and low vision users and also fully open source. I think that bears repeating. This is an open source platform that anyone in the world can use based on the work that we've done with Trust Berlin. So you're all invited to work with this platform and adopt it to your own needs. For more information on that, our friends from Trust Berlin will be available in the attendee lounge on Saturday from 2:30 to 3:30 to engage with you. And as we welcome you all to this virtual space we've created, we want to share a brief set of community guidelines to help ensure this space is a safe and liberated zone for respectful sharing of ideas, discussions, and calls to action. And we hope many new connections and inspiration points throughout the week. You can find these also in the guide section in the lower right-hand corner of your screen in the navigation bar. I-Beam's core mission values learning and exploratory process as a path for societal progress through the values of openness, invention, and justice. This approach extends beyond the way that we support artists to also how we interact with one another as a community, both online and offline, and how we respect each other's humanity. To that end, we ask that all participants today, audience members, speakers, artists, and I-Beam staff adhere to the following community guidelines we've compiled as a team, which have been inspired and adopted from the artist collectives Collective Sex, Alt-Div Hummingbirds, and BUFU, which stands for Bias for Us. So here are the guidelines. Although we convene in virtual space today, I-Beam acknowledges that the land on which it sits is the traditional unceded land of the Lenape peoples. From wherever you may sit today, I-Beam asks that you join us in knowing and acknowledging the local indigenous peoples upon whose land your home or institution occupies, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and to recognize the hundreds of indigenous nations who continue to resist, live, and uphold their sacred relations across their lands. Number two, we respect the diversity of identities, including gender pronouns, race, nationality, immigrant status, religious background, disability status, work experience, and other vibrant, multifaceted aspects of who we are. We ask that you please introduce yourself with your preferred pronouns when you are speaking to the community through video platforms or commenting in the chat box. We honor each other's boundaries and communicate with care. Withhold unsolicited advice, please, assumptions about other participants, and please do agree to disagree. Comment only from your own perspective, don't interrupt others, and be mindful to allow time for others to speak. And do feel empowered to move up to take more space if that's not your normal tendency, or move back to allow others to speak who might not be as heard, and listen with respect. We commit to being accountable to one another. This is a consent-forward space. If you're going to be sharing images from public spaces, in this instance, the attendee lounge or the chat box, please ask for consent first. And finally, we strive to make our space safe and inclusive. If anyone is feeling disrespected or unsafe at any time, we hope you feel comfortable speaking directly with Munira Kapper-Reininger from I-Beam's team, who is here to support our community's comfort in this space. And to that end, we acknowledge these guidelines are a work in progress, and we welcome your suggestions and feedback. If you want to share your thoughts, please feel free to share in the chat box or email us at info@ibeam.org. And before I turn it over to our host today, Lauren Ruffin, I'd like to take a moment to share our profound gratitude for our supporters in this initiative. First and foremost, thank you to I-Beam's Board of Trustees and Advisory Committee who lead us in realizing the full potential of our mission. Rapid response for a better digital future from inception to the realization of the program today would simply not have been possible without the support of the Ford Foundation, the Henry Lewis Foundation, and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. I'd also like to extend a personal thanks to Mariko Silver and Elizabeth Alexander for their leadership. Thank you also to the Jerome Foundation, who did not flinch when we shifted from our in-person residency as a result of the pandemic, which they have been longtime funders of, through both grant support and by easing the application process for our staff. I-Beam is also grateful for the longstanding visionary support of the Atlantic Foundation, as well as the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the New York Council on the Arts. I'd also like to take a moment to mention the incredibly talented I-Beam team with whom I have the pleasure of working every day for their ongoing dedication to supporting artists in this time. and for their creativity and hard work bringing together this festival. It is such a pleasure and a privilege to work with you. Big thanks to Jay, Kemi, Sally, Munira, Mad, Ty, Nat, Edan, and Marissa. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our host for today's program, Lauren Ruffin. If you don't know, Lauren is a thinker, designer, and leader interested in building strong, sustainable, anti-racist systems and organizations. She's into exploring how we can leverage new technologies to combat racial and economic injustice. Lauren is a co-founder of Crux, an Albuquerque-based immersive storytelling cooperative that collaborates with Black artists as they create content in virtual reality and augmented reality. She also serves as co-CEO of Fractured Atlas, the largest association of independent artists in the United States. In 2017, she started Artist Campaign School, a new educational program that has trained 74 artists to run for political office to date. She has served on the governing board of Black Girls Code and Main Street Phoenix Cooperative, as well as the advisory boards of Art Up and Black Girl Ventures. She graduated from Mount Holyoke College with a degree in political science and obtained a JD from the Howard University School of Law. Lauren, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to our virtual main stage at this time.
Hey, Roddy. Thanks for that intro. It was awesome. And hello, everyone else. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're safe, healthy, and warm regardless of where you are. I'm coming to you from snowy New Mexico, which is home to 19 Pueblo tribes that have been fighting for their sovereignty for centuries. As Roddy said, my name's Lauren Ruffin. I use the she series of pronouns. I'm a brown-skinned Black woman wearing a black shirt with curly, unruly hair that I'm starting to think matches my unruly personality. There is a white dresser in my background with a green tote bag hanging on it, a red frame picture of a dark-skinned boy blowing bubblegum, and the beginning of a multicolored Lego city that I've been building bit by bit. As Roddy mentioned, I'm currently the co-CEO of Fractured Atlas, which is an association of artists, and I'm also the co-founder of immersive storytelling. We're trying to ensure that the virtual worlds being built right now are inclusive of the experiences, values, and expectations of communities that are traditionally underrepresented in the digital space. Big props to Roddy, Sally, Jay, and the entire iBeam team for asking me to host this event today, which, given my aforementioned penchant for unruly behavior, is a real-time display of their brave, bold leadership presence. The theme for today's showcase centers on issues and concepts that I care deeply about: creating safe, brave digital spaces, experimenting with intimacy and connection across distance, and forming connections across the species divide. Hell, I was about this close from dropping out of law school to become a dog trainer. So I love what this group of artists, these explorers, adventurers, technologists, trailblazers that we're going to meet today are doing to pioneer spaces that are developing in real time, often out of sight, and at the very edges of our understanding of what's possible. Their work touches on aspects of our humanity that were often invisible to all but those of us living somewhat or entirely remote lives prior to March 2020. One of the things that I'm most profoundly grateful for is that so many more of us are wrestling with these big questions. Is there a way to improve upon our age-old understanding of community as we build new digital spaces? Can we possibly take the richness and depth of live performance and make meaning of that work on a flat screen? How are we demanding more of technology with regard to ethics, human rights, and our dignity? And then as I was working on this, a few more questions were posed yesterday by my friend and colleague, Sophia Park. And although she was referencing the ongoing real-world hate crimes against the Asian American community, these are seminal questions that all of us working in virtual worlds should keep at our core. What is safety? How do we create safe spaces and communities where safety is at the forefront? What are the actionable steps we can take while keeping our loved ones safe in a system that was built to enforce oppression? What is justice? What is justice? A few years ago, at our annual Fractured Atlas all-staff gathering, I led the team through an exercise that asked them to reimagine the organization at various intervals: 5 months, 5 years, 5 decades, even 5 centuries. The most interesting outcome of that visioning was imagining that in 5 decades, AI beings would be the primary generators of creativity, and that Fractured Atlas had played a role in advocating for these AI creators as more than digital enslaved beings. That is a wild-ass future to consider, right? But is that justice? Many of us in this particular space today have spent years navigating certain firm realities. In our professional lives, it might have been the reality of grants, dealing with boards, of production timelines, of tours and exhibits. In our personal lives, the walks to the grocery store, commuting by car, train, and bike become these reliable touch points, a signal that everything is working the way that we want it to work. But in the last year, we've had to create new realities, both large and small, many of which were outside of our locus of control. Maybe you or someone you know has moved to another city or town and had to form new routines while maintaining a connection with old friends. Or maybe it's working from home, learning the ins and outs of captioning videos, live streaming, and how expensive commercial internet is. Perhaps your primary companion is your pet, and you've decided to teach them to communicate with you via an alternative communication device. I'm starting to believe that the discomfort we're experiencing is really the duality of existing in a liminal space, straddling a world that's not yet been sunset while the new world twinkles at dawn. My thinking is that this straddling of two worlds is permanent, and that's why the work that iBeam and their artists are doing is so vital. My prediction is that by 2025, more than 95% of creatives will be earning the majority of their income online. How can early access to the Volumetric Performance Toolkit we're going to learn about later today position them for digital success and autonomy? And as we spend time together in this space less than 24 hours after NASA successfully placed a rover on Mars to continue our search for life on other planets, what can we learn from Apian's interspecies communication work? The speakers and presenters that we're going to meet today exist at the precipice of what's possible, and they're asking you to join them. I won't bullshit you. Standing at the edge of a precipice is terrifying, but it's also an opportunity to remake ourselves and our boundaries. So with that, we can get this party started. Our first speaker is Asa Raskin. Asa is the co-founder of Earth Species Project, an open source collaborative nonprofit dedicated to decoding animal communication. He's taken 3 companies from founding to acquisition, is a co-chair of the World Economic Forum's Global AI Council, helped found Mozilla Labs, was named Fast Company's Master of Design, and is listed on Forbes and Inc. magazine's 30 for 30. Let's get that going.
When I was in 5th or 6th grade, I went to a summer camp in the Adirondack Mountains. The first time I went canoeing, I remember noticing a mysterious phenomenon no one could explain. As I pulled my paddle through the water, 2 little whirlpools spun from its edges, spiraling away into the lake long after I pulled my paddle from the water. What were they, and how did they form? It was trying to figure it out for myself that pulled me into a love for physics and math. Together, they give you a map by which you can work out the whys of the universe. You can find the same vortex in the eddies at the edges of streams, in the rising warmth of dust devils, in the dangerous air rotors lurking behind cliffs. There are simple, unseen rules that govern everything. They're gorgeous. Metaphors are maps that preserve relationships. They help you understand one thing by borrowing your understanding of another. They let you understand something huge by understanding something small, something you can't touch by something that you can. The better your maps, the deeper variety of things you can understand with what you already know. And the deeper variety of things you know, the more your maps can teach you how the world is actually the same. By walking more territory and bettering your maps, you will find constant insight into whatever you care about most. These maps, your metaphors, help light the universe's simple, unseen rules. But take care. Maps come with a warning. The map, it says, is not the territory. The menu is not the meal. The representation is not the thing it represents. Some parts must be minimized to make others more visible. Maps clarify by obscuring. A metaphor, as a map, is like a set of many arranged bulbs in a dark forest. The trees flush with light hide those that are in shadow, and often in complex patterns. There is no way to see that isn't also blind. But moving between many maps and metaphors changes your perspective. It moves the bulbs in their arrangement. It lights this way and then that. And slowly, and sometimes all at once, you can see patterns in what you can't see. Truth is a process, more verb than noun. The entire exterior surface of ants is covered in communication. Their externalmost layer is no deeper than the width of a single dropping of a single dust mite, but it holds a library telling of health and fertility, excitement, fear, age, belonging, and tribe. Hydrocarbons. They can be deposited as billowing stepping stones, creating a flow of Morse code clouds buffeted by air molecules showing the way like flickering candles at the edge of the sea. This way food, that way peril, all together, cognition. The paths are collectively tended epistemology, a palimpsest library of Alexandria tap-etched at the surface of the world. Hydrocarbons structure the human world too, where we go, how we get there, which societies dominate which societies. Oil and gas have drawn pheromone trails through our human history. And bees. Bees use hydrocarbons too, but they cannot leave deposits mid-flight to show the way. As they fly, bees gather electric charge, hairs and wings rubbing, decorating their bodies with packed electrons plucked from the air, and when they return, their knowledge of the world is shared in Tanzsparsche, an eruption of smell and electricity, direction and duration. They sound their excitement, the displacement of air vibrating their fellow bees in dancing electric potential. The dance language tells the others of their own coming journey, in which direction to fly, and how far. Though, when food is plentiful and, like much other dance, once observed, it is ignored. Perhaps, in abundance, it's not for the others that the bees dance, but for themselves. Lars Chitka, decorated ethologist, has seen them night dance far from the forges of the day. Perhaps they dream, dancing with landscapes conjured from within themselves. For ants, with their dotted paths, how precisely do they speak, say, of direction? Their angular resolution can be measured, and in experiments, they can discern up to 16 different directions. For bees, with their dance, in experiments, they too discern the difference of 16 different directions. And humans, with our language, how many directions do we discern? Well, north, east, southwest, east by northeast, south by southwest. It's 4 times 2 times 2. We also speak in 16 directions. So here, pheromones, dance, language, all lighting a simple, unseen rule of the universe. I am one of the co-founders for the Earth Species Project. We are me, Britt Selvatel, Katie Zakarian, Peter Bermont, Radiko Molsky, and Masato Hagiwara. We are decoding animal communication using the tools of modern machine learning and the data from new scales of sensors. Our goal is to find, understand, and ultimately translate non-human language. We are working with dolphins, whales, elephants, and primates, with biologists and researchers from places like Cornell, Imperial College, Simmons Institute, University of Oxford, MIT, UC Davis, Mbari, Woods Hole Oceanographic, and the Jane Goodall Institute. We're also hiring a director of developments, AI researchers, and a science writer. Please write me if you know someone. But why now? From the field of unsupervised machine learning came a 2013 breakthrough, a set of techniques that efficiently turn entire languages into a shape that can be compared. The shapes look like galaxies, or every star is a word. Our mind's eye falters past 3 dimensions, but the shape of language requires hundreds. In this shape, the distance and direction between stars represents the relationship between words and concepts. So analogies form rhombuses, 4 lines drawn between 4 words, opposite sides of equal length. In 2017, a further breakthrough. Not only can you build the shapes of language, but if you rotate them in just the right way, the shapes align and match. The point, which is dog, appears in the same place in both languages, and like that, the 2 languages can be translated without dictionaries or examples, just by rotating one shape until it fits with the other. The shape of English rotates to fit the shape of Chinese, which rotates into and fits the shape of Finnish, and Turkish, and Arabic, and Aramaic. Despite the drastic differences in culture and context and history, human languages seem to all share a hidden, unseen, universal shape. And it's gorgeous. These rotations are metaphors. They are a mapping that preserves the relationship between concepts. Translation is a map that preserves analogies. Each language becomes a potential key to unlock every other language's lock. We're working now on being able to make these shapes directly from bioacoustic recordings so that we can compare the shape of a human language, the shape of animal communication, so that we can see what dolphins teach us about orcas, teach us about humpbacks, teach us about elephants, teach us about bats, teach us about us. We can compare the cultural dialects of whales or of bonobos in captivity to those in the wild. Each species' shape is a worldview, a crystallized glimpse into what it is like to be that being. The mapping between them, a calculable metaphor. What we are building is a perspective-changing machine. Imagine what we might find. Humans have been communicating with something language-like for maybe 60,000 years. Dolphins for 40 million. We are now en route to our first major publication on a significant but early breakthrough along the way. I'd like to leave you with this thought. Flowers can hear. Discovered at the University of Tel Aviv in the last couple of years, the rhythmic beat of a bee's wing vibrates the petals of an evening primrose from afar. And the flower reacts, grows wet in excitement, gushing with more and sweetened nectar. Plants make sound too. That same lab in Tel Aviv, they discovered that both tobacco and tomato plants emit ultrasonics when hurt, when cut or dehydrated, and the greater the distress, the greater the frequency of screams, and not quietly. If only our ears could hear as fast as the AC power in our walls oscillates, we would be bathed in the sound of fields at the volume of human speaking. This year's March special edition of the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society has this to say. Higher plants enjoy several features that were originally considered specific only for animals, including sexuality, immunity, self and non-self recognition, goal-directed behavior based on plant-specific cognition, and communication, as well as on intelligence and sociality resulting from the convergent evolution of flowering plants and animals. Our ability to understand is limited by our ability to perceive. These new machine learning tools are like the invention of optics. Optics created the microscope. Suddenly, beings were made of cells with inner workings, and bacteria, unknown before, were everywhere and on everything. Darwin's protege, Ernst Haeckel, spent years with one eye looking through the microscope and the other painting the vivid geometric beauty of the microscopic world. His collected works became art forms of nature and birthed the Art Nouveau movement. Optics also created the telescope. Suddenly, we saw that Earth was not the center, that the universe was far larger than humanity had even the imagination to conceptualize. Optics gave us our first measurement of the speed of light, the clues to gravity's workings, and the ability to calculate the age of the universe, to even know that that was a thing that we could do. Optics changed how we see, the perspectives from which we can see, and it changed everything. And then it changed everything. And then it changed everything. There are simple, unseen rules, and they're gorgeous.
That was amazing. I also love how Asa managed to work in a little like hiring and recruitment thing in the middle, looking for director development. I really heard some important things. If you're looking for a job in the audience, please get on that. But what is going to stay with me is this idea that metaphors are maps that help us retain relationships. That's really important to hold on to. So our next segment is going to be really, really cool. We've got Paige Mulhern in conversation with Appian. Paige Mulhern is a Boston-based illustrator and creative director of the Best Bees Company. Her work is a colorful exploration of her surroundings, often focusing on the natural environment. This brought her to Best Bees, where her creative efforts can be found in Martha Stewart magazine, Viceland, and on the TEDx stage. Since 2014, the DIY Humanities research project called Appian has followed an ongoing and open-ended ethnography, which explores the age-old interspecies relationship of bees to humans and humans to bees. Appian's project takes the form of the Intimacy Machine, a new digital artwork in the form of a web platform that will serve as a refuge where humans are able to have egalitarian encounters with bees without the need for physical proximity.
Hi everyone, my name is Aladdin Brioli. I'm an artist, a visual anthropologist, and a beekeeper. Right now, I'm sitting in a comfy black chair in front of the camera. You can see the top half of my body, and I have pale skin, dark brown hair, and brown eyes. I'm badly shaved, and I have a characteristic mole on my right cheek. I'm sitting in front of the white background, where you can see some bits of my research stuck to the wall. For several years, I've been developing a research about the relationship between humans and bees, and with iBeam, we developed a new chapter to this research called the Intimacy Machine. This project was developed with three amazing people, the designers Ari Block and Joris Lundman from Ari's Blondman Studio, and the visual anthropologist Ellen Lapper. Ari, Joris, and Ellen are all with us tonight, and I would like to thank them very much. The Intimacy Machine was developed in reaction to the forthcoming of digital sensor directly into our beehives. And it takes the form of a web platform. It was a reaction because it stems from ethnography that have been leading for a few years about the use of technology in beekeeping practice. While the promise of this technology is high, in its current status, it is a lure. It is a lure because it's based on the same ideology of manic production and endless extraction that brought our planet to the brink of collapse and already destroyed many worlds. The intimacy machine aims to turn this technology upside down and offer a refuge where you can encounter bees on a more egalitarian basis. In the words of Jacob Metcalf, it develops intimacies, yet without proximity. Hence, this polymorphous machine aims to imagine new ways of interacting with bees, new forms of intimacies. And it orients these technologies toward a practice of care that would benefit bees and beekeepers alike.
Okay, I think we should start, right?
Yeah, let's do this. Elaine, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can briefly present myself, like also I look just for blind and low vision people. So I'm sitting in front of a white background. Sorry, I'm wearing a black shirt. I have brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm white and I have a light skin. I'm badly shaved and I have a characteristic mole on my right cheek. I turn it to you, Paige.
All right, awesome. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be here. My name is Paige Mulhern, and I am the creative director of the Best Bees Company. Before I talk a little about that, I will also give a brief description. I'm a Caucasian woman with light skin, short, dirty blondish brownish hair, glasses. I'm wearing a beige button up, and I'm in a light-filled apartment. Really happy to be here. So the Best Bees Company is a beekeeping service. We take care of honeybees across the US, from New York to San Francisco, all amazing cities. What brings us here to celebrate the rapid response for a better digital future is that the honeybees that we take care of aren't just honey yielding, they're also data yielding. So that is what really connected us and brought us here to discuss. So I'm really excited to introduce my colleague, Shay. Shay joined the discussion a little after planning, so their bio was not read initially. So I'm really excited to introduce Shay and have them talk about themselves. They are our head beekeeper at Best Bees. So Shay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shay. I'm the head beekeeper at the Best Bees Company. And very quickly, I'll give a brief description. I am a white non-binary person. I have brown hair and wear clear glasses, clear framed glasses, and I'm wearing a dark green flannel. I'm sitting in front of some bright windows, so a lot of light behind me. So my role at the Best Bees Company involves overseeing the management of all of our New England beehives. Part of that management is helping determine what sort of data we're collecting for each of our beehives.
Yeah. So we're really excited to talk about this idea of bees and data and how that connects to the Intimacy Project. So one of the questions that we were looking forward to deep diving is what information as beekeepers is going to be the most useful when it comes to developing new technologies. So if we think about our current relationship with bees and our duties to take care of them and make sure they thrive, and from an individual hive level, but to across the whole world, how do we make sure we protect our pollinators? What tools and what data is going to be the most useful to collect So I'd love to kind of start that discussion between all three of us, Aladdin and Shay. What data are you most interested in at this juncture in your beekeeping journey?
Yeah, I mean, the data I collected for the project are really broad and really wide, and mostly data developed by university labs around the world. So they are not data that we can gather easily as beekeeper in the first place. They are like basically the prototype of what could one day maybe be used by beekeepers. So the platform really works as an archive of this, and as an archive, then we offer the possibility to go and dive in it and understand like how the future of beekeeping could look like. But at the same time, as a beekeeper, I was doing this ethnography and researching how this technology was coming and what a beekeeper would need. And maybe we can start with I can start a bit with the status of the current smart hive, or we could call them like electronic monitored hives, because basically, I mean, since beekeepers have been keeping bees, I think they try to monitor the beehives in any possible way open to them. For simply sitting next to a beehive and observe what's happening, to use mechanic scale, or to listen to them, actually, just to listen to the noise they're creating, which is maybe, I would dare, maybe it's daring, but I would say maybe it's the first way we actually monitored bees, is actually just simply to listen to what's happening inside. However, today, and quite recently, ubiquitous and sensing technology are coming into the game and making their way into our beehives. Maybe we can just historically situate this contextually. So the first electronic device that was properly built to monitor honeybees was actually a sort of a weird tool called the Apidictor. And this was developed by a sound engineer at the BBC called Edward Woods in the 1952 exactly. And this tools was trying to record the sound that the queen is making before swarming. So trying to get cues to prevent swarming and to help beekeepers to be able to react quickly or even to act before it happens. And from that, smart hives or electronic hives really slowly evolved. And I think we can situate the first model in the 90s approximately. And since then, it has been built in collaboration with university. And I think there were another big leap more recently when they started to use different neural network to actually just not only gather data, but also analyze data and kind of pre-analyze the data for the beekeepers. And working with beekeepers and seeing what the technology offers so far, it mostly offers the possibility of having your hive on a scale, so to record the difference in the weight of the hive. That would help to know when they collect honey, but that could also help to know different type of blooming season, for example. But we also have temperature or humidity sensor into the hive. I mean, all beekeeper knows that humidity is a big question when it comes to bees. They really don't like humidity, and also more and more microphones, like kind of stemming from the idea of woods, to be able to get some cues from their sound. And we know that now we can not only know if a swarm is coming, but we can also detect some disease through the noise a colony makes, or maybe even more telling for beekeepers, like if a beehive is queenless, then you directly hear it with your own ear. You don't need any technology for that. And all of these sensors are getting together and gathering data, which is then giving access for beekeeper on a web platform and being analyzed by this algorithm. But this is also really the beginning, and I'm really interested to know also how our best bee or our Shay, like what would you need or what would make sense for you to add, or if using already any of these sensors, of this data.
Yeah, so you mentioned sound, and I think that's a fascinating topic, because there's so much we can learn from what we're hearing from the bees. You mentioned like being able to predict swarms, being able to predict if a colony is queenless. But there's other things like understanding the age distribution of the bees in the hive, which is really interesting to me, that they can run at different frequencies depending on how old they are. So it really gives you a full view of what's going on in the colony. I also think that visual cues are really important in a colony, something that you would probably just do during a normal beehive check if you're going in and managing the hive yourself. But if you're away from the hive, how can we see what's happening in the hive, and like what can that tell us or help us track information that we can't see every single day. So one of the things that I found interesting on the archives that you've been compiling here is a visual tracking system for varroa mites, as this is a very big killer for our honeybees. So having something that could really track the varroa mites during the times that we're not visiting the hives is quite literally a lifesaver.
Yeah, maybe I can show this video actually to the audience, so to contextualize a bit, so they can understand what I'm talking about. So let me share my screen and just shout if it's not working, but it should be fine.
Yeah, it's super fascinating.
Yeah, so here, so it's on this video you can see honeybees crawling through a dark space, which basically is a tunnel put in front of the hive and equipped with a camera. The camera records the entrance of the hive, and with the help of an algorithm, it can count the varroa mites directly on the back of the bees. So on the video you can see colorful dots popping on the bees, which is when the algorithm is identifying a bee. So you can say if the bee is crawling on its back or crawling on its belly. And you can also see a counter on the top left going up with the bees and also with the varroa mites. And when the algorithm is spotted a varroa mite, there's this red square appearing, which is quite characteristic of machine vision, the idea of machine vision we have, I think, nowadays. And this setup aims to monitor the infestation level of varroa mites inside a colony, and it was developed by a team of researchers at Aarhus University in Denmark and generously provided by Kim Breghe and Berg Krieger, and I would like to thank them for that.
Yeah.
Just told me you couldn't see the video, but could you see it?
I saw it for a few minutes, a few moments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about the context of the Best Bees Company as well, and advancing these technologies, it's just super interesting to think of how these sensors could bring us closer to just a more efficient beekeeping practice. So I think there's often this misunderstanding or this idea that more technology will kind of distance ourselves from the beings themselves, from the bees, and sort of compromise that relationship that we have with the bees. But I think it's an interesting fact that we can then actually create a more trust and more bond with the bees when we know exactly how to intervene. So yeah, I would love to sort of ask you both, and hence the name of your project, Aladdin, how can we maintain intimacy with the honeybees as beekeepers as we experience all of these changes and all of these advances in technology? How do we remain that human to nature connection that is so important and that draws people to bees in the first place?
Do you want to start, Shay, or?
Sure. So for me, I know that entering a beehive is a disturbance. It's putting their lives on pause momentarily, so then you can go and inspect the colony and make sure that they're getting the attention that they need. And I could see this sort of technology bringing us closer, because it would allow us to enter these hives with a lot more intention and a lot more focus. So we're not having to go in too often and disturbing them often. But we're just going in just enough so we can act as shepherds to these bees that already know how to live. They already know what they should be doing for themselves, and we're just here to guide them. So I think in a way the technology can help us be better beekeepers and therefore build more trust and connection between the bees and ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's really this two side of this technology that struck me when I started to investigate and to research about it. First, as starting beekeeping, I was like, I don't want to stop opening the hive because it is why I'm doing beekeeping, right? I like, in a certain point, like the experience and the intimacy that you gain by just simply spending time with such a different species than us, for me, it's fundamental in the practice of beekeeping. And then this technology is a 1 point sell by saying that it will be save time for beekeepers, so being less time consuming. But at the same time, I believe that this time that beekeepers spend in the apiary is vital for what we know about bees and how we carry this historic relationship with them that is also vital for our survival at all. And then, but at the same time, then getting some experience, as you say perfectly, you realize the disturbance that actually simply opening a beehive creates. Like, they do seal the roof, they do put propolis everywhere, they make their home safe and cozy, and then we arrive, we open it, and we destroy part of their work, and we dig into it just to reassure ourselves, basically, most of the time, because most of the time everything is perfectly fine. And so this idea that a technology could help to be less disturbing was, I thought, what should be underlined and what should be focused for this technology. But so far, I have the feeling that, and also what stemmed from my ethnography, is that it's mostly based on the idea of managing the colony better and being sure that you produce enough honey or that you are efficient, basically. And it's why I built the intimacy machine, like in reaction to that as well, to think like, it's not only about efficiency, it's not only about producing honey, it's obviously about taking care of them, being careful about certain disease. And if this technology can bring like a better treatment for viral mites, for example, as we saw like this type of technology, like the video I showed that I think was a bit cut, but basically it's the idea of giving the possibility to count the number of mites in a beehive, and knowing that you can know that, oh, I should do the treatment there because the number of vira is really high. And yeah, I should say that this technology is not available yet, and it's also all the idea of the platform. It's to work with these labs and university that develop them, and like to think it beforehand, before they launch into the market and being used by beekeepers. So yeah, it's about how can we think this and how can we design them in a way that's not only take our needs into account, but also the needs of bees. And but how can we know the needs of bees as we live in worlds that are probably most different that we can imagine on Earth? Like, bees are definitely from outer space. If you start to learn how they behave, like how they see the world, and like, you know, through pheromones mostly, and like also to electromagnetic fields, as Eza told us in his beautiful poems. And like, so, but for that we need this technology, because we are giant creature opening the hive, and we cannot dig and dive into it without disturbing them. So we need to find specific technology that allows us to learn about their world. And it's why the intimacy machine is really focused on this idea of collaborating with universities that develop this knowledge and creating the possibility of giving access to this knowledge to beekeepers and to also makers of this technology.
I think it's so funny to think about what bees think of us as humans. The way you just described it, they're so advanced. And I think that, you know, all these research projects that are happening across the world are attempts to get on their level, to really understand like the things that we cannot know. So that really struck me. That's really beautiful. And I look forward to accessing more information on the intimacy machine, and as a beekeeper, incorporating it into my practice. And yeah, it's really wonderful work.
Thanks. Don't know. Yeah, maybe I can just talk a little bit about also one really important point at the beginning of the project, which was this idea of intimacy without proximity. And this stem from, it was coined by a researcher called Jacob Metcalf, who, while studying grizzly bear, realized the importance of not proximity, and when it make a lot of sense when you study giant bears that can eat you alive. It's another question when it comes to bees, because we are more disturbing than they are to us. Obviously the sting is a bit painful, but yeah, we got used to it as a beekeeper, and we realized that we are the main disturbance in the apiary. And I think I could maybe conclude on his quotes, that I think the quotes from his paper that summarize this quite well. It's like he says, on the one hand, both the science of ecology and the global nature of environmental problems demand an ethics founded of the unity of all life. On the other hand, the very entities to which our moral obligations refer are often best cared for through a separation from most human activities. Yeah, I don't know if you want to roll on that, but yeah, it was really nice to exchange with you and to learn also what you do at Best Bees. And yeah, thank you very much for that, at least.
Yeah. Shay, do you have any reaction to the idea of intimacy and proximity as a beekeeper, and then how you see either utilizing the intimacy machine or concepts like this as a beekeeper moving forward?
Yeah, it's definitely a very grounding and peaceful experience to work on a beehive. And I think there is a tendency to kind of take advantage of how it makes us feel, and to do it too often. So I think being able to still feel that closeness through visuals, through sound, through smells, that this tech can provide us is going to help us keep that connection without, jeopardizing our relationship with them.
We're probably out of time. I don't know. If someone kept an eye on the clock, I didn't, but yeah.
Oh, that was amazing, y'all. That was really, really great.
Thanks.
I've always thought about bees as being these really sort of purpose-driven, complex societies, and so much of sort of y'all helped me understand the science behind my thinking in that way. So thank you so much for this conversation. It was really, really rich.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for hosting brilliantly as well.
Thank you. So our next conversation is coming to us from Cara Gilmore. Cara is the executive director of BAX, the Brooklyn Arts Exchange, a multi-generational arts organization placing education, performance, and artistic process at the intersection of arts and social justice. Cara has decades of experience in arts education, administration, community engagement, and fundraising, and a strong focus on equity building. Cara, really excited to hear from you. Welcome to the Rupture.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Jay and to iBeam for the invitation to join you today. And a huge thank you to Aladdin, Shay, and Paige. My parents were beekeepers, so I grew up with beehives, so that was really fascinating for me on a personal level. So thank you for that. My name is Cara Gilmore, and I am a pale-skinned woman with gray hair, pink and gray glasses. I'm wearing a black turtleneck with 2 strands of red beads, and I'm speaking to you from Brooklyn, the indigenous land of the Lenape people. As mentioned, I am the executive director of BAX, which is the Brooklyn Arts Exchange, and BAX is a multi-generational arts organization, and we focus on nurturing creative expression, education, performance, and really artistic process at the intersections of arts and social justice. There are 3 pillars really of what we do. There's education, where we're offering classes for all ages, from infants to adults, with a real focus on creative practice, and arts as a means of equity building. Then we have an established artisan residency program and a space grant program where we offer stipends and a cohort experience and mentorship from Abigail Brody from 600 Highwaymen and Leah Love. And then the third umbrella, I like to call it, is what we call Practice Lab, which really fosters artistry of curriculum building and collective learning, and serves as an incubator for sustainable teaching practices, really, that we're really prioritizing LGBTQAI voices and underrepresented artists, as well as legacies. But a fun project that we have done this year under the Practice Lab has been Rotations, which was actually conceived of and directed by IBEAM alumni, Yo-Yo Lin and Palena Keke Brown. And that was a web-based series of classes led by disabled artists for disabled participants. So really exploring lineages that were conceived of in a disabled body. So that's been incredibly successful. I have to say, really identified a real need for community across 7 countries, and we're eager to do it again. So it's interesting, BAX is celebrating its 30th anniversary this month. We were founded in 1991. And I think that this particular moment as an anniversary of an organization for decades, but also 1 year of COVID, feels really profound. And in the midst of it all, we're also transitioning from being a founder-led organization to a model of being more of collective and collaborative leadership. So it's been a year. I just started in July, so it's been half a year of really important conversations around racial injustice, around prioritizing artists over institutions, and really rethinking how we function within the nonprofit sector. But of course, a huge learning curve for us has been transitioning to a reliance on technology. BAX is known for being very sort of old school. Yo-Yo recently called our website humble. And much of the infrastructure is held together with spit and glue because the priority has always been to funnel as much to the artists and to the students as possible. So pivoting has been a big shock. And I think that the extraordinary staff at BAX dove in to make it work. And it really became a place of collaboration. And we were constantly asking the artists, what do you need? And being honest about how we could figure it out together. And it really became a new way to collaborate, but also taking the time to acclimate to the realities of our world and the loss of human energetic exchange, as much as anything, as much as figuring out how to work it. I want to take a quick moment just to talk about the work prior to BAX before I circle back around. So before July, I was a senior director at Gibney, which is a larger contemporary dance and performance organization in Manhattan. And my work there focused on partnerships with survivors of intimate partner violence and disabled artists, as well as working individually with artists to develop their own creative practices that explore arts and social justice and what that means for them individually. And before Gibney, I was part of a large public park project, developing a hands-on education and stewardship program for Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is an 86-acre park on the east side of the East River, so the Brooklyn side. And there was really focused on sharing the magic and the beauty of the natural habitat, both the aquatic and land-based, and lots of native species. So of course, a huge communication means was through art. Now, I bring this up because it's really interesting to note that both organizations grew exponentially while I was there. And I was really privileged to be a part of the development of these New York City landmarks, really, in their own way. So Brooklyn Bridge transformed from 8 acres to 86 acres, and Gibney grew from 4 dance studios to 22 dance studios. So massive growth. And one thing I think that I take away from those experiences, is not to be afraid of the entrepreneurial spirit. And I would say that this is in direct contrast to this enduring scarcity model that is so prevalent among artists. I think it's often accompanied by sort of the 1-2 punch of the imposter syndrome, right? Not a helpful duo when it comes to mental health, to sustainability, to flourishing. I'm hearing so much these days that now is a time when we look to artists, right? In times of crisis, artists will lead us. And it's true. History has shown this to be true. But I do think it's a double-edged sword. We look to artists, and I would say that as artists, we know how to lead right now. We know how to make a dollar go far. We have literally trained our whole lives for this. Who knows better how to make something out of nothing, right? We go into an empty studio and we make a dance. We look at a blank piece of paper and we write a story, or we, look at a canvas and we make a picture. Like we know how to create something, and we also know how to collaborate, and we know how to problem solve, right? I don't know if any of you are dancers, but if a lift doesn't work, you figure it out before the end of rehearsal. You try a different side, or you make it work, because that's what you do. So I think it's interesting that we're simultaneously, as artists, being looked to lead, but we're also having to and we're ready, right? But we're also having to contend with this culture that says you must suffer for your art, or you're not deserving, or whatever ridiculousness our subconscious might be spewing. Now, it's interesting because when I think about sort of these organizations that I worked with, and they really have become leaders in their fields, right? The Park is this, now people from all over the world study it, and Gibney is, people look to Gibney for different things. And one of the things that made them work was this embracing of unsuspecting partnerships. So for both organizations, it was really public-private partnerships that were the cornerstone of the growth. It was uniting artists and engineers, science and art, balancing commercial ventures with free services, really visioning outside of the established norms that allowed the projects to explode. I do want to acknowledge that much of the growth at Gibney and Brooklyn Bridge did not center BIPOC voices. Much of it did not, as is overwhelming reality of our sector. Both were led by women, and 2 out of the 3 leaders are queer women, so that's some progress. But part of the growth strategies, I think, really were prioritizing equity and access. And I was lucky enough to be a part of those initiatives, working with Title I students and working with many survivors of intimate partner violence at Gibney. But I think that the success of these organizations really is about the cross-sector collaboration as the way out of the conundrum. And that's what I see you doing so beautifully here at IBEAM. And that's what I see the Rapid Response Fellows really, really, really doing. And I think that it's outside of our comfort zones that's what can lead to transformation. So we as artists can expand lenses and open minds and communicate, yet we also need to peel back the layers of our own mentality and access tools that encourage us to explore new ways and think of new ways. And so Valencia James and the Volumetric Performance Toolbox and the team at Glowbox, they're diving in, and they're really not only creating this groundbreaking space, but also centering equity and access and diverse lineages and innovation, and the priority of these conversations and the leadership of these initiatives from the inception of the idea. They're really steering the ship towards what is becoming unique. And I think that beyond using technology to create digital performance and experience, it's also designed to be accessible in all ways, affordable, accessible to disabled people, backgrounds, races, to all of us, to artists and observers alike. And for me, this is that learning edge, and it's so exciting to watch it. And also I see the exploration going beyond the performative. Really, I'm seeing that this is an honoring of the time and the expense and the collaboration, the investigation that it takes to take a scientist process as well as an artist process and really find the friction that might happen. And that's what's creating the heat that can make this new, really, really, really exciting work happening. So I feel like I want to say thank you. I am so excited to watch what is coming from all of you as you collaborate in these new and unimaginable ways with new and unimaginable tools, and really creating a meaningful, not only a bridge, but an exchange between the past and the future in a way that I think only you as collaborators can do. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see what comes next.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for that, Cara. That was fantastic. We now have a brief break coming up. I think we are back here at 3:25 Eastern time. So see y'all in a little bit.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hi, welcome back. Welcome to day 3. We're so glad that you can join us today. My name is Jay Soto. I'm the manager of programs and inclusion here at iBeam. I use he, him pronouns. I have dark brown, short hair, light brown skin. I'm a queer Mexican-American man. I'm wearing a very bright shirt today with big blocks of green and yellow and red and blue. I wear it for events often. So if you've been to some iBeam events, you've probably seen me wear this shirt. Welcome. Today, we're celebrating and witnessing the work of Apian, Aladdin Boreoli, Ellen Lapper, Harry Block, and Joris Landeman, and the Volumetric Performance Toolbox team with Valencia James, Sora Bluey, and the support from the tech and software studio Glowbox. Today's program is hosted by Lauren Ruffin, with talks by our friends Aza Raskin, Paige Mulhern, Shay Willette, Cara Gilmore, and soon iBeam alum Lajane Mcmillian, and the Volumetric Performance Toolbox pilot residency cohort, who you will meet in a moment. And later on, a talk with Amelia Bearskin and Valencia James. If you're just joining us, I'd like to share a brief reminder that we are also available in the chat box to assist with access needs and support your experience navigating from the Rupture web environment. We also encourage you to introduce yourselves in the chat box throughout the event, where you can also share reflections on the program. And please visit the attendee lounge, where you have access to some of the artists that have spoken today, and there'll be also Q&A sessions. So take a moment to visit the lounge, say hello, meet the team. And also, you might have seen a link pop up during the break. Please also take a moment to visit us online. There's several ways that you can engage further. Check out the new Fold membership, which was built to bring our community closer to the core of what we do by getting closer to the artists that we support and the wonderful ideas that they are creating. Take a moment to go ahead and visit that link and say hello. And now a bit about the artists today, which we are happy to be celebrating. Aladdin Boreoli and the Apian team and the Volumetric Performance Toolbox team. They're collective projects who are really redefining intimacy at a moment when it's being rapidly reshaped and when we need it most. I've been grateful to witness the evolution of each of their projects over the last 9 months and how responsive they are to the moment, to the multiple futures and possibilities that they represent. And I couldn't be more grateful to be here with them today and with you all. And now I'm going to pass it over to my friend, Lauren Ruffin.
Hey, Jay.
Hey.
That's a great shirt. Like, I usually go for like the big patterns, but today I went solid because I was thinking about using a green screen. So applaud you for rocking some patterns on this one.
Thank you.
So I'm really, really excited for our next speaker here. Lajane Mcmillian is a new media artist, maker, and creative technologist living in New York. They have created art pieces that integrate performance, virtual reality, and physical computing to question our current use of technology and forms of communication. So excited to welcome Lajane to the stage. This is starting to feel a little bit like being at the Apollo. But in any case, super stoked and really excited to meet you. This is our first time crossing paths, oddly enough. I feel like we've been separated by 1 degree, and this is our first time sharing a space together.
Yay, and I'm so excited to meet you too.
Awesome.
Yes, my name is Lajane Mcmillian, and I am on the unceded lands of the Nacotchtank in the Piscataway. And I am a dark-skinned, brown, black person, and I am wearing a black sweatshirt, and I have on a long lace front wig with the side part, and I also have on headphones and glasses with a metal bridge. And yeah, I'm in an apartment with some art on the walls in the background. And I am super excited to be here and sort of talk about my work and my process. And so I'm going to share my screen right now. Oops. Awesome. So yeah, I've been working in the new media field now for around 7 years. And this is actually just a few panels of work that I've worked on across many different mediums, including installation art, live performances, using motion capture technology, and sort of blended projection mapped wall experiences, as well as extended reality and virtual reality experiences. And so as I started doing this work, I was really interested in what it means to have connections to digital media and also to different various technologies. But once I left the school that I was attending, where I started all of this work at, I realized that my access to a lot of these different technologies was drastically limited. And so I say that to say that in the past few years, access to motion capture data, 3D character-based models, and software to make animation yourself has skyrocketed. From Make Human to Mixamo to Carnegie Mellon's motion capture database, the ability to make and finish polished projects has become easier for many. And while these resources are extremely helpful to create a range of projects, they lack tools to create diverse characters and movements unexplored by systems that center assumptions of neutrality. So 2 years ago, I began to explore this this new I guess like experience of my work, which could be I guess experienced by developing and creating space for developing maybe new technologies and new spaces for new tools to be developed that could explore diversity. And so I started my residency at I-Beam, and I started creating the Black Movement Project, which I now have changed the name to the Black Movement Library. And it started as an online database of Black motion capture data and Black character-based models. However, I realized really early on that my thinking process behind what it means to record data from Black folks, whether it be data about our bodies and how they move, that if I was going to do something like this, I needed to make sure that I was doing it with a large amount of care. And that I also was paying homage to all of the other types of data that our bodies carry that aren't necessarily quote unquote captured by different various technologies. So what does it mean to build a library space that could talk about that and reason with that? And yeah, so just to talk briefly on like different motion capture databases that currently exist. When you're looking for culturally specific movements, you may find some, but you're often met with dances and movements that don't reflect the search terms. And also, in the name of making it easy to use, these tools often omit valuable information from the users, including information about the motion capture actor who provided the movements and important historical and cultural information about the movements performed. So basically, to explain that a little bit further, there are motion capture databases that are available online. However, when you actually like download them, you don't necessarily, you're not provided with any metadata or any data about the actual people who, or even where like those movements came from. And I found that to be extremely problematic, especially for a space like this, because I really want to make sure that I am drawing connections to the important history and resources available. And on the flip side, there are various different character creation softwares. And this is a picture of FaceGen, a GIF of FaceGen, where I have uploaded pictures of my face. And essentially, it's a really great program for generating character-based models for if you, while like uploading pictures of yourself. However, within a sort of like character software here, you can look, if you look to the right panel, you see that there are a lot of different problematic sliders that become available to us, basically diluting various different regions of the different ways that people look down to sliders. So it has a slider for African, looking more quote unquote African, looking more East Asian, more South Asian, and more European. And it really brings out questions of, okay, like why did they choose like these specific features to be paired with this slider? But it also shows us a lot about how the software developers feel about gender. So whenever the character becomes darker in skin tone, their motion capture, their character features become more masculine, more quote unquote masculine, or more feminine. And so with that said, I began asking a lot of different questions about exploitation, erasure, and dilution of our culture and our peoples, and what cultural reparations may look like. And yeah, Black movement does not only represent our individual experiences, but it represents our collective memory, transcending space, time, and oppressive social structures. It allows us to connect to each other, our ancestors, our deepest selves, and it gives us space to communicate to our future. Black movement is a technology holding the stories of our existence across the diaspora. So basically, I've been trying to redefine, or actually not even redefine, but really discover and explore what it means to develop my own and my own embodied technologies, and see like how that sort of is reflected in a lot of these different like various digital landscapes and environments. And yeah, it's really time for digital spaces and landscapes and all spaces to reflect our humanity. So more questions, but I'll keep going. And yeah, in Black performance theory, Dr. Nadine George Graves defined diasporic spidering as the multi-directional process by which people of the African descent define their lives. It's the lifelong ontological gathering of information by going out into the world and coming back to the self. And so I wanted to use this process of diasporic spidering for the library space. And I decided to transform it into a library that seeks to grow community through performances, extended reality experiences, workshops, conversations, and tool making. And for this first experience, I worked with two different performance artists, Ronaldo Maurice and Nala Duma. And essentially, I worked with them over the series of like 4 months, learning about their movement, practices, and journeys. And essentially, we embedded those interviews into soundscapes that they then performed to. And basically, audience members came into a live archival process, sort of just like showing how basically when you record, I guess like motion capture data, it doesn't necessarily need to be this like one-time thing where people are just like in a motion capture studio, but it can become also a performative event too. And so I also created different visuals using Unreal Engine. And then the last project that I wanted to talk about is Antidote, which I actually created over quarantine, over this pandemic with a really amazing choreographer, Marguerite Hemmings. And Antidote is an offering and a prayer, an interruption, a hacking, a portal, a medicine, a ritual response and physical undoing of the lie that we are not our own and that we are not free. And basically, over the course of 2 months, Marguerite and I wore motion capture suits and basically created spaces for each other over Zoom by doing various different rituals, but also movement work. And for the last thing, I just wanted to show just a really brief like video because we also were able to collaborate with Rena Nakwe, who's an amazing multimedia artist who did all of the sounds work. But we also worked with Salome Asega and Amber Starks, who crafted a really beautiful end acknowledgement. So I just wanted to end with that. Oop. And this is the part. Yeah, and I'll just pause it there. And I'll come back to just saying that I was also really excited to work with the Volumetric Performance Toolbox crew, and I did a version of a workshop that I've been developing that I started with I-Beam called Understanding, Transforming, and Preserving Movement in Digital Spaces. And yeah, we were diving into a lot of these different frameworks that Marguerite and I have been developing over Zoom. And basically we were working with all of these various prompts about who we are and what it means to really give our movements definitions, as well as names, and what is that process and how do we sort of go through that archival process today. So yeah, I was really excited to be in community with them and to learn more about their projects too. So yeah, I think I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
That was amazing. That was so dope. I love that. I mean, I don't love thinking about the internet as having sharp edges. I mean, I think about it all the time, but hadn't heard it phrased that way. So thank you so much for that framework. And like your work is just really fantastic. And you provided a great segue into our next group of speakers. So we have Amelia Winger-Bearskin in conversation with Valencia James coming up next. Amelia Winger-Bearskin is an artist technologist who helps communities leverage emerging technologies to affect positive change in the world. She's a senior technical training specialist at Contentful in the San Francisco Bay Area. In 2016, she went on to found and direct the DBRS Innovation Lab, an applied research lab that specializes in developing creative uses of artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. And she'll be in conversation with Volumetric Performance Toolkit, Valencia James's project. Volumetric Performance Toolkit reimagines immersive web spaces as a site for addressing the need for more equitable representation of humans in mediated performance. Volumetric Performance Toolbox offers accessible, user-friendly technology built to empower movement artists to perform from their own living spaces for a virtual audience. But first, we're going to do an introduction into the Toolbox, their cohort video. Volumetric Performance Toolbox ran its first artist residency between December 9th, 2020 and January 29th, 2021. The program brought together a fantastic cohort of 7 multidisciplinary artists from BIPOC, LGBTQ, and disabled communities to envision a decolonized, decentralized future for online performance. It's been a time of co-learning and co-creation in which these artists have created an evening of innovative live streaming performances to be experienced within Mozilla Hub's virtual space. This experience was built in just 2 intense weeks of remote collaboration by artists who have never worked together before. The performers appear in 3D from their own living spaces using the low-cost performance kits developed by Volumetric Performance Toolbox. And with that, here we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Terry Ayana Wright. I am a Black femme currently wearing a tight red top, and my hair is slicked back, and there's a green screen standing behind me, I'm in my living room. I consider myself to be a dancer, a teacher, a choreographer. I'm also a grad student right now at Parsons, their design and technology program, with the aim of combining my dance background with technology. And I have found sort of an affinity of doing that through screen dance. And I'm so thankful for Valencia and for iBeam and for Glowbox for bringing me onto this program to do just that. The experience that Carlos and I have created is for everyone, and we hope that everyone enjoys it. It is deeply inspired by both of our cultural roots, his Peruvian and mine African American. And so we use that textiles and textures from our different cultures to sort of indirectly shape how we created the story around the space, from the choreography to the artifacts that you'll see themselves. So we hope you enjoy our experience in Hubs, and yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening.
American immersive media maker, sound designer, and composer. At the time that I'm recording this, I'm in my room in Brooklyn, New York. My pronouns are he, him, and a visual description of myself is I'm wearing a black tank top, I have very little facial hair, black hair, and on the wall behind me is a projection of an abstract film that I painted. My work is mainly done in 360 video and dance. I also work with software such as Isadora to make interactive video performance. I believe that these mediums help decolonize the fine arts. I believe that these mediums also open avenues of accessibility through technology. And I want to use these mediums to advance Hispanic narratives in American culture.
Hi, my name is Kat Ross. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. A visual description of myself: I'm a white androgynous femme. I have long red hair with bangs. I'm wearing wireframe glasses, I have freckles, and I'm wearing a light coral sweatshirt. My background is my bedroom. I'm sitting in front of some houseplants, and I have an abstract painting in the background to my right. I'm working from Portland, Oregon, on the traditional lands of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Chinook, and various other Columbia River Basin tribes. I am a creative technologist, researcher, and performing artist. I work a lot in sound design and dance and film. The past few years I've been more concentrated on new media and performance. My practice is conceptually centered around social and environmental justice as they relate to burgeoning technologies. And my draw to new media and performance is a desire to contribute to the aesthetics of this super new medium, and making an effort to decolonize these virtual spaces by contributing to the shaping of the culture and the dialogue and who's represented and who's creating in these mediums, in an effort to make them more equitable.
Hello, my name is Elaine Ringgold. As a visual description of myself, I'm a non-binary Black femme. I've got my hair kind of pinned up in a messy kind of bird's nest thing today. I've got blue eyebrows, and I'm wearing a sort of cream-colored cardigan right now. I'm an interdisciplinary artist, and I work mostly with video, sound, and sculptural installation, and then have recently gotten into new media arts. I'm currently an undergrad student at Pacific Northwest College of Art. And for the Volumetric Performance Toolbox project, I worked with my awesome partner, Remy Harris, to create the Sankofa Hub space. And we're envisioning this space as a sort of suggested bridge between what we understand as external and separate from ourselves through the exploration of this kind of celestial dream landscape. Well, I really hope you guys enjoy all of the performances, and thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Remy Harris. I am a Barbados-born and Brooklyn-bred movement artist and XR enthusiast. My work explores the intersectionality between Black female representation, movement, and new media. My work kind of manifests in different forms of choreography for the stage, choreography for film, and thinking about how we can incorporate XR technology into performance. As a member of the Volumetric Performance Toolbox cohort, I am really interested in thinking how we can use these new technologies to archive and preserve our stories, how we can reclaim our body in these new spaces, and also how can we start to create new pathways and a new roadmap for the future we want to see.
Hi everyone, my name is Marianne Talavera. For my visual description, I am a medium brown skinned femme with curly hair, glasses. I'm wearing a purple turtleneck and pink necklace, and I'm a multimedia artist, filmmaker, and a graduate student in the Interactive Telecommunications program at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. I worked on Of the Elements, and I'm passionate about immersive media. Using creative technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, and virtual production, my work centers the narratives of Black and Brown communities with a focus on celebrating the stories of the African diaspora. And one of my goals is to help close the gaps in representation within the 3D space and make interactive experiences that are as accessible as possible. And lastly, I just wanted to say a big thank you to the Volumetric Performance Toolkit team. This has been an amazing experience. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Antoine Hunter. I'm a director of Urban Child Dance Company and the founder of the Bay Area International Deaf Dance Festival. Really, I am just really honored to be here to create a world that is really necessary for us to try to create. You know, a lot of people today are trying to find out a way to feel peaceful. You know, and we are creating a virtual world to bring peace to people. You know, I think interesting. Peace means what? Providing access to yourself and each other. You know, myself, I'm deaf, and charities and Blackfoot plus Africa. I think it's really meaningful for me to find a space to be chill. You know, working with people in the process, we'll be trying to understand what assets mean for each other, you know, and go on a journey. You know, my other name is Purple Fire Glow, that's my extension name. Being charities in Blackfoot, plus African, it's really important to me to stay connected to my spiritual self, to find a space where I can stay grounded. Any space, or, you know, so when I'm working with people, feeling really respect to try to, you know, sometimes we are doing when we say each other's name before we speak. That process, essentially hearing people to just talk, you hear the tone of their voice and you know who's talking, but I don't hear the tone of their voices. So when they speak and they say their name and interpret it, I understand what's going on. You know, I really appreciate that because like cooking, you have to put out what's inside of you. If they are open-minded to creating a good soulful of assets, then that virtual world that we create will have a good soulful of assets. You know, I'm really grateful for people to be participating in this, you know, because this is a learning moment of how we all can come together. It's a really important moment, you know what I mean? I just say that I'm grateful to be part of the process. You know, yeah. So, again, my name is Antoine Hunter, also known as Purple Fire Glow. Peace and love.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, my name is Valencia James, and I am a performing and movement artist. At the start of the global pandemic last year, my performances were cancelled and theaters closed. And then it hit me, what if I as a performer can go into the computer and perform in virtual space? This crazy idea was the birth of the Volumetric performance Toolbox. The Toolbox is a new way for artists to perform from their living spaces safely and to remotely collaborate, all using minimal equipment. This project is a collaboration between myself and creative technologist Sorab Louis and the Spatial Interaction Lab Glowbox.
I'm Thomas Wester from Glowbox, and I contributed technical direction and strategy.
I'm Sorab Louis, and I'm helping Volumetric Performance Toolbox to create a less expensive hardware for broadcasting.
I'm Simon Boas from Glowbox, and I helped make the program to teach artists how to create their own volumetric performances.
We are using 3D video technology to bring live dance performance into social virtual space so that audiences can have a communal art experience just using their web browser. In the past couple months, we have developed a residency program to empower movement artists to create in virtual environments and to help them sustain their craft in this new reality. We are committed to the liberation of all those who have been traditionally harmed by media and technology and other systems of oppression. We truly believe that it is really important that diverse voices are at the forefront of building these tools and that their stories are told. We're building a community of creators. Thank you to iBeam for this amazing opportunity and for helping us bring this project to reality.
I got into coding because I wanted to do things that I couldn't do by myself, and being able to collaborate with machines meant that I could do things that I do poorly faster, and then I could do things that machines do poorly better. The first place I started performing was with my mom, who was a storyteller from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. I would play the Iroquois rattle and drum while she told stories. I then became a classically trained opera singer. I started composing and directing and making more and more emerging technology mixed with live performance and opera, and kind of ended up in museums. Nowadays, I use a lot of different media, AR and VR or interactive media to tell stories, co-creating with other types of non-human systems. As an artist or as an activist, I look at the way that the Iroquois Confederacy was built. We said that anything that I'm doing now is the result of 7 generations behind me. Anything I do will have a lasting impact on the 7 generations ahead of me. We use stories as a way of taking values and ethics and putting them into the core of innovation. I started looking at the media landscape we have now. How do I take information and encode it for future generations? A lot of my work is really about creating an ethical framework for software development and design, and articulation of values and ethics within technologies with the understanding that we need to future-proof these. There's a notion that the technology we've created now has outrun us. No one knows how to regulate it. We accidentally opened this Pandora's box and we can't get it all back inside. But actually, we can choose to use technology to build a more just world, a more equitable world. We can demand that. We can say that we want algorithms that are human-centered, that are for our environment, that are pro-democracy. We can articulate the values we want to see in technology and communicate those to 7 generations in the future. What do we want to achieve with the culture and social network that we're creating?
I would just disagree because, like, I'm still, because when we first met in the summer, so when I first got to know your work and we got to the amazing panel together, these concepts were still quite new for me. Like, I mean, I'd felt like the urgency of it in me, but, you know, being in this space of really interrogating, you know, these technologies that we're using every day, and then, you know, reflecting on just my relationship with what's happening in this moment, with thinking about how we can you know, push against systems of colonialism, and also, you know, the importance of like racial justice and the immediacy of it, you know, has. And then I remember you told me about how important it is not to center the colonizer.
Yeah.
And so I've been just really like reflecting on that. So it's just like starting to sink in. So
Well, you know, I loved being part of that stop work, and I hope I didn't ask like really dumb questions. But it's okay to ask dumb questions. Like you know, just for anyone who's watching this.
Yeah,
like,
there's
it's
no
okay
dumb
to ask
questions.
questions. Like, I'm not saying anything about all the dumb questions in the world, because those are sometimes useful. But I did ask probably some dumb questions, and it's mostly because I just think you have such a treasure trove of ideas and projects that you're stewarding, or that you're guiding, or that you are creating a bag to hold this community in, you know. And it has technical protocols, but it has community protocols. And you know, as a community, you're breaking ground in this new virtual space with a group of people that have, some of them have done it before, most of them haven't. Most of them, this is kind of like a new project. Maybe someone like Lajane has done it a million times, but like, you know, some people it's like their first time in VR. And I was just wondering if there was a way in which you could, maybe it's inventing a lexicon, or at least centering the lexicon of your group and superimposing that over the way that people talk about tech, rather than trying to then use tech words to talk about it. Does that make sense? And that's why I, you know, and I apologize to your collaborators, where I was like, you know, we're talking about open source and like, you know, maker community and like kits and having things be off the shelf assembled. And I've heard that way of talking before, but I haven't actually heard what's truly Valencia about this project before. And I wonder if that voice could be used so strongly, even when you're talking about the code base or the kits, or, you know, I was like, what would that look like? Like if we were to look up a terminology index in this project, rather than finding the usual terms that would be defined as like, what is VR? What is community VR? What is mocap? What if they were your words? I don't know. Is that like too crazy?
No, and no need to apologize at all, because that was really, well, that's why I was so happy that I invited you, because it was like, yeah, we can get someone really poking in those right places, because that's super important. And that's one thing that you know, would be really important for us to do, is to demystify what we're doing, demystify what is technology that we are using, and what it is we want to create with it. So so yeah, so to that end, we're working on a series of like Medium articles.
Oh, nice.
There's already one out by Thomas Wester of Glowbox, who you met at that stop work, about, you know, what do you mean by volumetric, you know, because that's like one typical question that comes back when I try to explain to like my friends or my dad, like, what do you mean, like. And so so I can like send that a link to that a bit later. But we're talking about how do these technologies work, how does like your depth sensing camera work, and how it uses light and, you know, pixels and lights, and how it like bounces off the body, and how it's picked up by the cameras. And so the whole idea is about how do I, as a performer, appear as a 3D video inside a virtual space, so that someone who is, you know, on their web browser in that space can change the location of where they're, how they're looking at the performance, and kind of feel a sense of a 3D kind of experience. So yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, because I mean, I think about like people who are inventing these technologies, um, they bring with them their worldview in the way that they describe them. And when we're working in spaces that we didn't invent, we could also invent our way of talking about those systems, or moving through those systems, or changing them, right? Like you could say people talk about motion capture in this way. It's primarily used in enterprise training. And yet, my group is not thinking about it in that way. We're thinking about it as, you know, sharing the places on our body that you can look at in a different form. You know, and I don't know. I mean, obviously you know what you're going for, but I wonder if it's like it's kind of because these spaces are newly defined, that doesn't mean that those will be the definitions that last forever or the ones that you have to like accept. And so I wonder if there is something that is so unique to your collaborative that you begin to speak about it totally differently. It's like no one, you might meet people who've never heard of motion capture before and don't know what motion capture real-time dance is, and you get to explain it to them for the first time, and your explanation doesn't have to be the same as anyone else's. I mean, maybe that's disingenuous, but it's art. Like, whatever, deal with it. You know, if
Yeah.
you're the first person who got to explain to me what dance was, you don't have to go through the Western canon. You could chuck that straight out.
Yeah.
And I would never know.
Yeah,
You know?
no, yeah, I see what you mean. Like that, I think that's a beautiful power of coming to this to tech or whatever from an outside kind of point of view. So yeah, I'm super excited about. For me, it's like about what does this tech allow me to do that I otherwise wouldn't be able to, and especially when coming to like, okay, how can we have live dance performance in a virtual in VR. I didn't have a headset. I'm not from that like gamer community, so like it allows me. And I thought like, okay, I don't want to be represented as an avatar. Hence, like going to thinking about volumetric video because I want to be there as Valencia James in my true appearance. Because as a Black femme, I'm not really in those spaces anyway. So how can we circumvent that? Yeah. But curious about the language that comes out from that. We'll see.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm not usually a person that's very obsessed with language. Like as an artist, I'm more interested in sound and duration and movement and performance. But there was something that struck me about the way that you were speaking about the project, and then others that I thought, what would be, like if this was a play and he was, or some of your collaborators were one character and you were another, I might be like trade parts. You speak about your thing, but with Valencia's words, right? Like I want to kind of see what would happen in that case. My puppy, he's like 9 months old. He's such a crazy one.
What's his name?
His name is Cowboy. He's 9 months old. He's a COVID puppy, but
Oh.
he's just,
Yeah.
he's now like
Cool.
crying.
And they're doing some kind of work in my hallway. I'm so sorry. That might affect the sound quality of this, but it's life, right? Real life. Oh yeah.
Cowboy. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to see as an experiment. Like, what if you could only explain the hardware only using the like neural net trained on Valencia's words? Like, what would that be, right? Or if you could only talk about how to assemble the hardware, but you could only use the community language of the dancers, what would that be like? Like, I don't know, just kind of things like that it would make the whole process so sound as radical as it is. And I thought that might be fun or interesting or cool, like even in the way that you show people how to assemble these kits, or when you're talking about how to charge them, or all the kind of, I really love, obviously I love Afrotectopia because I got to go to the first one of those conferences at ITP, and I loved how everything that was like source code, and from the graphic design to the ways in which you would sign up for the Slack, you could just tell this was a different group that was making this than had ever made a conference at ITB before. And it was so amazing. I felt like every part of the conference was touched that way. Like even when you showed up to get your ticket, like Ashley Jane Lewis is there being like, hi, it's just like so excited and like it's so much energy. And like mostly ITP things, when you go, people are like wandering around and you're like, is there a thing happening there? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm just standing here. And you have to like wander around, keep trying to find it, you know, but it was like Ashley Jane Lewis with her table right in front of the door with the stack of like sweatshirts. And, you know, it was just so different. Like every moment of that conference was different. And I wonder about that with your project too. Like if every, like I love the kit that has the eyeball on it, like the little, like the googly eyeball, that was really different. And then I wanted them to also kind of even talk about the hardware in a way that is like, you could just tell this is made by dancers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but yeah, that part. I think that's something really great for like the future of like the residency programs, because we just had this pilot where we invited like 7 multidisciplinary artists to just come and learn with us. Well, I was like, I need to learn about how to make virtual environments. Like I want to do it in community. So that was really great. But that could be what we did do is think about shared values. But I think
that's my son. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's cool. So, I think in the future we can think about lexicon, right? How do we talk about these technologies that we're using?
And maybe now, like you said, it's the pilot group. So maybe that group then learns how to onboard the next group and teaches them. And then that's where you'll get that lexicon. Like, don't tell them what they're supposed to say. Don't tell them how they're supposed to explain it. Don't tell them what parts are important and what parts should be chucked out. Cause like maybe they have interesting opinions, focusing the technology around this pilot group could be really fascinating. And this kind of goes back to something that you've talked a lot about, like hardware versus fidelity versus cost versus accessibility, right? And I think a lot about that about your project. Like there are lots of parts, and there are a lot of places that you could be really innovative. You could be innovative around the cost because it's an incredibly inexpensive kit. It could be innovative around the hardware because it's, you could kind of move in that direction. This could really be an open source hardware project, or a product that you sell and you market and you become a hardware company. Or it could be something that's radically accessible. And when things are radically accessible, it may not matter if it's that radical of hardware. It could be like, well, you could buy this at any Walmart. It's in the toy section and it's a toy SpongeBob camera, but it's really easy to plug in. You know what I mean? Like if it's like, well, we don't care about the other things, we care about accessibility. You can say, I'm going to use these off the shelf things that are easy for people to find, or easy to onboard, or easy to replace, or whatever the thing is, right? So yeah, I would love to hear some more thoughts about that, especially having learned from this first pilot group.
Yeah, I mean, so the kit, I have it here without the googly eyes.
Awesome.
We found that the sock might have been like hindering my audio, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, this was the brainchild of Sora Bluey. Was one of my amazing collaborators, and he was like, I don't care about 3D virtual environments. Like, what are the dancers or what are movement artists gonna use if they need to like, if they can't afford like one of those strong computers for virtual, those kind of uses. So it was like, okay, let's bring the tools, that's more affordable and accessible. And so yeah, I mean, it started with that. So we used, so I guess I'll show again. There's a Raspberry Pi, which is a really tiny computer. And this is like a display screen, because as dancers, we love like mirrors.
You gotta frame it. Yeah.
You gotta see the immediate visual feedback. And then for this, we went with Intel RealSense depth camera, which is one of the more like cheaper like depth cameras out there. We started the experiments with an Azure Connect, which is it's more expensive and it requires an actual heavyweight computer. And then this tiny microphone that would have a sock, and that's where we stuck. This is where Thomas Wester stuck the googly eyes on, and this tripod. So basically, it's like kind of ordered off the shelf things, components
put together, and Glowbox, which is one of our amazing collaborators, they like really found a way to mount these kind of components together. So so yeah, for us, it's like how to first of all make it cheap enough to for movement artists to use, but then with that comes the trade-offs, like with this depth camera, it's not as accurate as say the Azure Connect, but it does. We got it to, we tweaked like the software works to like get a really nice representation. It's quite the the kind of video is like quite pixelated, so that's also, we can use it as an aesthetic, and I saw like the cohort, they really embrace that aesthetic. And that's the other thing about volumetric video now. It's beautiful, like kind of this ephemeral quality of the pixels and how it moves, especially when it comes to dancing bodies. So it's an interesting way of how you can use what the technology gives in an artistic way for artistic expression. But then, it's not going to be as crisp as say like, a normal video, like what you see now, like it's so, but how can we use that and how can it push us forward? I think one limitation for me has been like, how do you place the camera and how can you be able to dance in a more expansive way? Because we're in our living spaces, and then I have a quite nice big living room, but then I'm still having to have like a 2 by 2 meter box, so I'm essentially moving like on the spot. So how does that transform my practice? And so it's different kind of trade-offs, but what we come to is like how these limitations actually push forward our creativity.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
it definitely makes me think that, dancers are like, they're incredible at moving around space. So your small room on motion capture, even if it's a really big motion capture studio, it's like, it's not the stage, right? It's not as big as the stage or as expansive in that like bleeding in and out. And then dance for film is a little different, right? Like suddenly when you're dancing for film, maybe it mattered more what your face looked like, or it didn't on the stage. No one cares what your face looks like, right? So maybe dancers in film had to have more facial expressions. And so I wonder if for mocap we'll see a different type of dancer flourishes in that medium. But I also wonder if it might include some dancers that felt limited by the stage or film. I'm also thinking of people whose bodies are differently abled, right? Like, because I could imagine if I wanted to just motion capture my hands and the movement of my hands in a space, in one of your virtual worlds where my hands were as large as you when you're in the headset and you just see my hands the size of forests, right? Like that's something you could do in VR. But if I was someone who mostly did my movement with my hands, that wouldn't be very interesting on a stage, right? People would be like, I can't see what she's doing, but that would be very compelling in VR if you were somebody who primarily danced with your hands, right? So I don't know, it might unlock a differently abled way of expressing the human body as well. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. That is compelling. Like, because when I'm thinking about how we're who we're reaching out to in this, I was thinking about accessibility, digital accessibility, and so we in the cohort we have a Antoine Hunter, who's a deaf choreographer and dancer based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so it was really great to think together with the space of like online um, immersive environments, and how does that relate, or how does that um, give rise to creativity for that he can also access that space as a creator, as well as those who would actually watch the work.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interestingly, also like on that note of like how might a differently abled body engage with this, we found some really interesting innovations with how the camera is placed, because people had like very small spaces, so maybe
Remy Harris, who's a movement artist, part of the cohort, she actually mounted her camera on her, like on the corner of her ceiling. And so that might be another way of, a different way of seeing the body. And
Totally.
yeah.
No, that's so fascinating. And I really loved Antoine's piece, especially, he's kind of really famous in the Bay Area as a leader in dance. Like so many people have taken classes from him. He's just like, pro. Like he's been around a really long time, like taught everybody who's anybody in the Bay. And so it was really great to see him in VR, and I thought he seemed so fluent with it. And I wonder if that was just that he's such a pro, like he's done dance in so many different, and been a choreographer and so many different, like the evolution of dance in his lifetime. I wonder, do you have people that are very early in their career in dance, like discovering something about movement and about themselves through this process?
Well, not as movement artists, but there is like Elaine Ringgold. They're at school in Portland, Oregon. They're an interdisciplinary artist working with like sculpture and sound, and so it's been really amazing to see their how they're thinking about immersive web space and virtual environments in relation to movement, because they also use their body in their installations. So
interesting.
Yeah, so
very
yeah.
similar, I guess, to like in virtual space where you have the body as the object in dance, but then it's also, you can place it anywhere in the world, right? That's very
Yeah. And so Alim and Remy collaborated on this beautiful piece where it's set on a lunar surface, and thinking of planets and presence of the body in this lunar surface and sound. It was just so totally immersive. And then there's Terry Ayana Wright and Carlos Johns Davila created a whole world from like found objects in their living spaces, but they're like very precious cultural objects. Like Carlos is from Peru, and so he had this beautiful quilts that became like the actual surface.
Yeah, I loved that. It was like a mountain of a quilt. It's really cool. I spent like a lot of time in that flute, I have to say.
Oh,
Great. I really liked the lunar experience too. I loved that sort of gateway. I wanted that to like also be bodies. That's kind of where I thought of like this forest. It felt like a forest of movement. I love all of the spaces, because especially since adding the dancer's body just made my mind have so many like parallel experiences. VR is so trippy that way, which is really wonderful. Yeah, well, I'm so excited about your project. I can't wait to see all the versions of these projects and continue to share it with the rest of the community.
Reading one of your articles last night, and one thing that was really profound for me was like the idea of like the actions that you do now with carries over for 7 generations, and we're living the results of the actions of our ancestors from 7 generations before. It was so profound. I was like, wow, I'm gonna take that one.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't invent it, so like for sure take it. I think of us like time traveler, or like that's what I think of time travel as being like communicating from my ancestors to my descendants. And so I think we're always in a state of time traveling. It's not about my body physically going somewhere, but like being in a strong communion with the past and the present and the future. When I was growing up, I used to feel like that was a lot of pressure. I mean, it is a lot of pressure. You're like, oh my God, if I do something wrong, it's going to be like, but then I started thinking about it less about being a responsibility in that Western thing of like, you're going to mess it up or not. And I started thinking that it's more like understanding my actions as part of like an abstract whole, and that if I could see my life that way, I would be closer to happiness and to my purpose if I wasn't seeing like this myopic view of the now. that it would connect me more to reality. And that's the reality, not like maybe this like Western capitalist labor hours that my body will do for capitalism. You know, like maybe that's not real. Maybe the reality is this like this larger continuity. So I do think it's less about like doing it like don't fuck up and more about don't get lost.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And understanding. I love the actual the shifting like ideas of time, right? That
Yeah,
the past and the future are together with the present.
totally. Yeah, and I don't think the Western idea of time seems very right. And
Mm.
it doesn't seem to fit into a lot of other cultures. You know,
Mhm.
all you have to do is go and live with a different culture who has a different sense of time, and then you're like, oh yeah, that was really relative. You know, like
Mm.
this hurried pace is very relative if it's going to take a half an hour to cross the road, regardless of if I'm stressed about it. So it's like time can be different. It can feel different. Like I lived in Central America when I was like a teenager till when I was an adult, and yeah, time moved so differently there because people just accepted that it moved at the pace of humans, and that was just the reality. You were kind of an idiot if you thought you could like hurry things up by yelling or being panicked about it. Like that's literally not going to change the like 18 cows that are in the street. Like you're just going to have to get out and like have a coffee and talk to me, unless you just want to be an asshole. You know, like I don't know, there's just this acceptance of like what is wrong with you that you can't do that. And so, yeah, it doesn't take much to just get a different perspective on time. To you're like, oh yeah, um, maybe it's even larger than that slower pace. It's actually a pace that's a little bit more connected to other generations. So I have even less control than I thought. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Again, the collective, being part of the collective rather than this individualistic way of moving through the world. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious about what are you working on these days?
I just started this weird collective called No Funding Creative Collective. And it's like we meet once a week and we talk about creative ideas. And it's like no funding, no striving, no hustling. I guess no point, nothing. I don't know. It goes on and on and on. But I wanted to be more in communion with people in a way that didn't have as much of a purpose, except that just talking about an idea would be the purpose. I made this thing called the Stupid Hackathon. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but
Yeah. I never got to like go on. Do you have any like documentation on it? I haven't.
yeah, for sure. You go to stupidhackathon.com
Okay.
and it was called Stupid Shit No One Needs and Terrible Ideas Hackathon. And we would always find our people. Like so many stupid hackathons happen all over the world, so many different cities. It became like this weird phenomenon for a while. And I always thought that's really funny. Like we didn't have to explain it too much before all the people that were like-minded would just come and be like, yeah, I get this. This is my shit. I'm going to hack all this weird stuff. It's going to be totally ridiculous. It was always had this way of like punching up to the power that was sort of the status quo of the tech world or of the art world. And we didn't have to like explain that. It just happened because it's like you give permission for someone to do something that's like stupid and pointless. It just opened up these areas, this like imagination. And I remember we got on the front page of Hacker News, like the first hackathon, or maybe it was the second hackathon we had. It got all this press from like the Guardian and like TechCrunch and all. Just it got this like news cycle going. And Hacker News was so angry. We were on the front page because everyone's like, "Who gave them permission to do this?" And I was like, what? And so I like made this like Photoshop document that was like permission. And then it was like to do this. And then I like put that on the Hacker News and I was like, here's my certificate of permission to do this. And they're like, of course, that made them really mad too. And they were just like, how come these women are allowed to like joke around about beauty standards when we can't even talk about how women look at work? You're like, yeah, it's almost as if that's different. But but it was like those kind of things. Like we have permission to talk about subjects they're not allowed to talk about. That's not fair. But also we weren't a company. We were just people getting together and making things, which is like not illegal. So it was very interesting how upset people got about it. And it was a very simple idea of like, what if you were to take an enormous amount of brain power to do something really stupid? That should be okay. I don't know why it pissed people off so much. And so I'm kind of doing this same thing, but instead of it being stupid, although I love stupid things, like don't get me wrong, I'm still 100% for stupid. It's just about like, what if it's not about like getting funding, getting fame, getting status, like literally you just are interested about a weird thing and you would like to talk about it with some other people. And yes, most of us happen to be artists and recovering strivers, you know, but like in this, for this 1 hour of this week, it's not about any of that. It's just kind of like, can we, and I hate Zoom and everything, but like that's all like what are you going to do, you know? So it's like it's going to be on Zoom, and I have this like very strict format so that it can stay. I think the more constraints you have and the more strict a format you have makes the participants feel like they can do anything. I don't know why that is, but I found that out with the stupid hackathon when I was like, it cannot make sense. It cannot be useful. Then people were like, great. So, like, it gave them these like permission to just do something really, like they couldn't fuck it up unless they tried too hard. So don't try too hard. So I want it to be like that. It's just you take this 1 hour to do something that like no one is ever going to give you funding for ever. That's what I'm doing right. This is my week, Valencia. I don't know. This is what I'm doing right now. But in general, I'm doing more stuff with like wampum.codes and everything. But that's, you know, but like, you know, you asked me today. That's what I'm doing today.
No, I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Obviously, anyone who's watching
Hello, hello. It looks like we're experiencing some technical difficulties. So let's take our break now. We'll make the rest, I think we only had about 3 or 4 minutes left of that video. Let's make that available after the break. And we'll come back here in about 15 minutes or so. Thanks so much.
I got into
It's not about like getting funding, getting fame, getting status. Like literally, you just are interested about a weird thing and you would like to talk about it with some other people. And yes, most of us happen to be artists and recovering strivers, you know, but like in this, for this 1 hour of this week, it's not about any of that. It's just kind of like, can we, and I hate Zoom and everything, but like that's all like what are you gonna do, you know? So it's like it's gonna be on Zoom, and I have this like very strict format so that it can stay. I think the more constraints you have and the more strict a format you have makes the participants feel like they can do anything. I don't know why that is, but I found that out with the stupid hackathon when I was like, it cannot make sense. It cannot be useful. Then people were like, great. So like, it gave them these like permission to just do something really, like they couldn't fuck it up unless they tried too hard. So don't try too hard. So I want it to be like that. It's just you take this 1 hour to do something that like no one is ever going to give you funding for, ever. That's what I'm doing right. This is my week, Valencia. I don't know. This is what I'm doing right now. But in general, I'm doing more stuff with like wampum.codes and everything. But that's, you know, but like, you know, you asked me today. That's what I'm doing today.
No, I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Obviously, anyone who's watching can join. Just ask Valencia; she'll give you the link. But you know, yeah, I don't know. We need more. You're doing such a great job making a community, but I like need another one. I feel like my communities all got really serious, and I need a really not serious one now. So.
Yeah, I mean that's for me. It's like how do you keep building that and keep reaching out? I'm new at this, so at the community. So
Yeah, I mean, well, I've done it in all the terrible wrong ways. So like, I gotta figure out. The stupid hackathon was perfect though. That's a great one.
that sounds great. Sounds
yeah,
great.
that one was
Wampum
bang on. But I've done a lot of ones that were terrible. So it's like, I mean, not terrible. Like, I don't think I've ever built like abusive communities or something like that. But I've done ones that exhausted me, where I just like had to like, I built this whole thing and then I had to like, oh god, like, you know, it was too much. It was like I built it too big on too small of an Amelia, you know.
And then what did you do? Were you able to pass it on to someone else, or did you just kind of let it?
Yeah, I was like, I know how to do 5 of these 10 things I need to do. I'll find like 3 people who know how to do, like, you know. But that's good. Sometimes people who start things aren't the best one to run them. Sometimes you are, though. It just depends. It depends what you started, right?
Right. Yeah. That's great. That's great when you can find someone to keep it going, or say like, okay, maybe that was good for one run.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also okay to do that. Like the stupid hackathon doesn't feel like the moment with Zoom World, because it was very tactile and in person, and I just don't like, people have asked me like, don't you think you want to do that virtually? But I don't think it works, you know. So some things you could start aren't going to be the right thing forever, as the world changes, and that's okay.
Maybe it evolves like into this
no funding.
No funding.
No funding. I don't know. That will be really easy to attain. You know? If someone tries to give us money, we'll just be like, no.
Yeah, I wonder, because the best things come out of that kind of space. I find like when you do find something that's really like, well, who knows? Like maybe it's something that can circumvent like that whole like capitalist kind of system of the funding and grants and stuff.
I hope so. I know already somebody who joined was like, I've been teaching artists how to like build on Ethereum blockchain so that they can have like a decentralized network of community support. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds close to funding. You might have to leave the group. We might have to kick you out, man. He's like, no, I promise. It's not going to be about funding. I'm like, okay, I'm watching you.
But what about like self-sustaining practices? Would
That's
that
what he was saying. He's now you're on his side. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe if by trying to not find funding, we'll find a way to never need funding. That would be awesome.
Yeah, sounds
That's the
inspiring.
dream.
Yeah, you post it, please.
I will. I'll send you the link, and then if anyone who watches this wants to join, you can decide. Like, you don't have to invite everyone. Just the cool people.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Yeah, I won't let it out.
Yeah, be like, if someone's like, "Oh, can I join that?" and you're like, "Oh, it's full." It's like, they're like, "Well, you just invited my friend." But it'll be good. I think it's so hard to find community during quarantine that we're like losing our minds in this space. So hopefully you've been doing a great job, and we'll keep trying, keep iterating. Maybe our two communities can have like a powwow sometime.
Hello, friends and colleagues. Welcome back from the break. Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. The full video will be available on the Hub site today. My name is Kemi Ukadike. I am the project manager of the Rapid Response Fellowship here at IB. I have been working with each of these artists on the development of their truly groundbreaking projects over the past 8 to 9 months. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'd like to describe myself for blind or low vision participants. I have brown skin and ombre black to blonde curly hair. I have an oval face and I'm wearing large, round, gold-rimmed eyeglasses. I'm wearing a green, blue, and brown colored cape and gold earrings. Behind me is a red wall with a red, black, and white mural featuring dark-skinned African dancers. I hope you've enjoyed today's program so far. Thanks to our speakers who have discussed topics such as sentient languages and sounds, sensors in beekeeping and the data collected from the hive, intimacy without proximity, arts administration, mixed reality environments, BIPOC embodiments and cultural references in virtual space, creating accessible and affordable platforms. Now, after an inspiring afternoon of discussion, APN and Volumetric Performance Toolbox will be launching the projects that they have been developing throughout their fellowship here at IB. We are excited to share these works with you all today for the first time. Both projects look at decolonization quite introspectively. I remember Volumetric Performance Toolbox discussing ways to break down barriers to entry in the performing arts space, especially now during the pandemic, as this field has taken a tough hit, and being thoughtful and impactful about the tools they're creating. Then they had the idea of having a residency within their fellowship and brought together a fantastic group of 7 multifaceted artists from BIPOC, LGBTQ, and disabled communities to envision a decolonized, decentralized future for online performance. APN's work, led by Aladdin Borioli, looks at the connection between beekeeping and human interference. The unveiling of their project will include a sensory live sound performance by Laurent Goodell, as well as a tour of their Intimacy Machine project. Captions and ASL will be provided. Volumetric Performance Toolbox will include a Volumetric Performance Toolbox will include a live streamed remote performance captured in Mozilla Hubs and projection mapped for public display on windows at the Abrams Arts Center. Both projects will be launching for the rest of the program until 6 p.m. So if you're not participating in the workshop, or if you're just browsing, we encourage you to move back and forth between the two at your own pace. You can always return to both the APN and Volumetric Performance Toolbox platforms through the From the Rapture Hub site at your leisure. I encourage you to visit the project pages for both APN and Volumetric Performance Toolbox, where you can learn more about these exciting new works. Housekeeping remarks. Edan will be handling access requests and communications in the chat box on the Hub site only. I will be your host for this portion of the program, and I'm available for questions and to support your navigation between the two projects. You can connect with me by commenting in the chat box and over in the attendee lounge, where myself and other I-Beam staff will be available to answer questions. Thank you and enjoy.
Okay, so I'm taking over. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Aladdin Brioli. I will start by describing myself for blind or low vision people. I'm white, I have a pale skin, dark brown hair, brown eyes, and a characteristic mole on my right cheek. I'm wearing a dark shirt and I'm sitting in front of a white background. Next to me, there is Ellen that will let herself.
Hi, I'm Ellen. I use she, her pronouns. I have tan skin, dark brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm wearing a fluorescent, almost fluorescent yellow blouse with a microphone pinned to the middle of it. For the Intimacy Machine, I've been mostly contributing through writing.
So I will briefly introduce you how the launch will unfold and then present the other collaborator that are with us tonight. So first we will discuss and introduce the Intimacy Machine with Ellen. Then we will navigate the platform with Ari and Joris. Then there will be a music part by Laurent Gudel of about 15-20 minutes. And then there will be a conclusion, opening questions with Ellen as well. So I would like to thank profoundly I-Beam for the chance to this fellowship, but also LABEC, who was a partnership of the project as well. And I would love to thank all the scholars and beekeepers that help us to build this project. However, the list will be endless. So thank you all of you, and all the names and all the contributions are available on the intimacymachine.net platform that we will launch together right now in the next hour. So I will first invite Ari Block and Joris Landman to the stage.
Hello. Hello. So, Joris, you can start.
I'll start with a visual description, a description of myself for visually impaired and low vision people. I'm speaking to you from Amsterdam, and English is not my first language. I'm a 50-year-old Caucasian person with light skin. I have dark eyes and dark eyebrows. I'm wearing a dark blue shirt. I'm bald, and the hairs that I have are razored very short. I have some stubble on my cheeks and on my chin and on my mustache area, which is quite gray. I'm in my studio in Amsterdam. It's night here, so there's artificial light, and you see a day planner with some high-lit events on it.
I'm Harry Block. I work with Joris. We have a studio, Joris Blondman. I will describe myself as well. I am as well in Amsterdam. I'm in my living room, where you can see two white walls, one with a picture with colorful cups and plates. I'm Caucasian, quite pale with light brown hair, gray eyes, and I wear a black pullover. And I think that's it.
Yeah, as an addition to the visual description, people often say that Ari looks like a superhero and me maybe like a supervillain. Also, maybe we can give a brief introduction to the studio that we have. We have a graphic design studio focusing on the intersection between graphic design tradition and screen-based design digital experiment. So we do a lot of websites, digital stuff. We work a lot with cultural organizations and makers. Anything to add to that, Ari?
No, that's perfect. Aladdin.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And at last but not least, Laurent, I would like to invite Laurent Gudel as well to the stage to introduce you to him.
Hello, do you hear me?
Perfectly.
Perfect. Hi everyone, my name is Laurent Gudel. I am currently in Switzerland. I am a Caucasian man with a light skin. I have dark hair and dense beard and dark hair too. I am wearing a very soft and comfortable black velvet pullover. I've been collaborating with Aladdin Boyoli for a few years now. I am an experimental electronic musician and sound artist. I like noise, interferences, politics of sound. As you may have noticed, my mother tongue is French, and I hope you can understand me despite my accent. I am sitting in my apartment, which is also my studio, my sound studio. There is a white wall next to me where you can see many audio cables hanging. You can also see a microphone right next to me, lamps in the background, and in front of me there's a very cheap Sony tape recorder. It's a tape machine that I bought in a flea market just in front of my house. This is a very outdated machine. It doesn't work perfectly, but I'm still going to use it to play a composition that mixes hisses, noises from the inside of different hives, but also noises coming from the electronic instrument that I'm using. I thought it would be interesting to give it a try and mix new and old technologies. This is the first time that I play sound through Zoom, and I hope everything will go well.
Thank you very much. It was perfect. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to go well, like in the rehearsal. Before starting, I'd just like to thank all of you really much for this collaboration. It was amazing to work with you. And yeah, without further ado, let's dive in.
Yeah. So I guess like this first part, we just thought we'd just give an overview quickly of the Intimacy Machine and talk through some of the ideas behind it. And perhaps it's best coming from you as the creator behind this project, just briefly, like, what is the Intimacy Machine?
Yeah, sure. I won't be too long there because we've been a bit on that, but basically the idea was to create a machine that challenged the forthcoming of digital technology in the world of beekeeping. I mean, for example, using sensors that are directly inserted into beehives, different type of sensor like scales, temperature, humidity, microphones, in order to gather continuously those data and then publish them on a platform where beekeeper can access this data and monitor their hive remotely. So this make our hives, we can call it then smart hive. And this could actually, if it's fully take on, which is not the case at the moment, could drastically change the practice of beekeeping in order to develop less intrusive and less time-consuming practices. While the promise of this technology is really high, in its current status, I believe it is a lure that could only lead to the proletarianization of beekeepers, and finally, to their replacement by ill-designed cybernetic machines. It's a lure because it's based on the same ideology of careless and manic production that have already destroyed many worlds beforehand. So what we're trying to do with the Intimacy Machine is center the question of intimacy that beekeepers have traditionally developed with their bees, and design a platform that utilizes this same technology, but instead its premise is based on the idea of care rather than productivity or colony management.
Yeah, and I guess that's like what we were discussing a lot in the text, which is available to read on the website, which accompanies this, is that there's kind of a big misunderstanding about bees in that humans have ascribed this metaphor to them of them being like really industrious workers.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's really interesting to talk about metaphor when it comes to bees, because that reminds us of the amazing talk by Asa at the beginning. Like, our metaphor could be useful in order to understand and grasp other beings and non-humans, but at the same time, bees knows a lot about metaphor, and we've been inscribing metaphor to them all over history. Like, they've been symbols and metaphor for all our political ideology, from monarchism, communism to anarchism, and nowadays democracy. But there's one metaphor that never really left the world of bees, the idea of being working bees, basically the busy bees, the industrious worker. But I think it's really important to understand that this metaphor could be damaging, and bees are lazy, bees are also idle, bees also like to play. And I think that this metaphor is insinuating that they produce honey, and they're just here to produce honey and pollinate our crops, right? So, yeah, this is a bit what we want to challenge with the intimacy machine, and think and let the viewer to discover the world of bees differently from another angle.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess like we talked about it as well as the platform acting as a kind of refuge. And I guess this idea of an internet refuge is really important nowadays, not only due to the impact of the pandemic, but also it's important to have these kinds of opportunities to find or create spaces which maybe are not possible in real life for communities that have been overlooked, and that includes non-humans. And so the Intimacy Machine hopes to offer a space for the creation of new worlds with wider accessibility for all, because it also acknowledges that the current world is irreparable. And I guess within beekeeping specifically, it's very much a tech that's still in the making, as I understand. Unlike in other fields where the Internet of Things and these kinds of smart devices are like proliferating everywhere, perhaps with beekeeping at least, the Intimacy Machine stands a good chance at having an impact and maybe hacking this technology from the outset.
Yeah, I mean, the world of beekeeping, it's really slow to take into new technology, and it's also not really been a focus as it is much in farming and different fields. And yeah, I think you're telling really right. The idea of the machine is to create a refuge where you can encounter this bee on another basis, and then the technology that is used so far is following and built on the same principle that have basically led farming, and on the same idea of just motivated by wealth and power.
Yeah, and then I guess we can all sort of agree that if technology development just remains in the hands of the technology capitalists, then it's not going to be created for the greater public good. I mean, we've already seen the results of racial algorithms reflecting implicit biases already within the real world.
Yeah, and I think that's something we try to do, and to take a little bit of control back, and like putting ourselves also in the maker of this technology in the future, and questioning the question of infrastructure, and something that have been left behind a lot in some thinking that we close to, I believe.
Yeah, and I guess through like the fact that you did ethnographic research as well, you've like worked together with scientists and beekeepers as well. And so you're looking at creating a technology like which is acknowledging that perhaps humans do create, or some humans at least, create the most harm. And how can you rebuild a technology that refocuses and senses this kind of control, and do that sensitively? And maybe just to take a step back, which I guess perhaps for people that don't know you might suddenly wonder, where does this interest in bees come from? Like, why bees?
Yeah, I think people that know me knows it well, but otherwise, I will maybe just share a picture to answer that briefly. Oh, really sorry, is that. So this is the apiary of my grandfather. So this is the place when about probably 10 years ago, I started to help him because he was aging, and beekeeping is quite a difficult task. I mean, you have to carry a lot of oils. So yeah, I learned there in this sacred place with him. It was been like a really safe place for me, and spending a lot of time with him and with his bees at the time. And I think I will never forget. And I got really quickly hooked when I entered this place, like the smell or the sound. And since then, I didn't do anything else than working on bees, basically. Like, yeah, for the last, I don't want to count the year, but it's been still a really big source of motivation. This is where he started also. I like to thank him for that. They unfortunately passed away last year, but yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I would agree as well. Like, having also spent time in the apiary myself, like, beekeeping is hard physical work, and it's something that is very time consuming. And that's something that this kind of new technology is actually trying to take away, time. And I guess, like, it reflects an idea we also discussed in the text about beekeeping being an amateur hobby. It's something that's really centered on care, patience, time, and revisiting. And that reflects as well in your ethnographic research, but stands in direct contrast to the instant monetary transactions, consumerist ideologies, and the current status of Smart Hive. So perhaps it's interesting to just briefly mention how you moved from it being an amateur hobby into a subject of your research.
Yeah, sure. I can go on that. Maybe before closing the picture, I can just quickly describe it. So this apiary is located in Bavaria, Switzerland. In the middle of the picture, you see like a little wooden cabin with a light beam on it. The roof is really old and there's a lot of moss in it on top of it. On the right, you can see some of the beehives, and inside you can see my granddad veil and some old beehives that we keep in it. So yeah, as you said, I mean, I always studied this question since I was doing art school, but later on I got in doing visual anthropology, where we study actually together. And I've been starting an ethnography during this master about the forthcoming of this technology and the latest tech in the world of beekeeping, and questioning how this could change actually our relationship with them and the practice of beekeeping.
Yeah, and I guess that also makes me think, like, because we did study visual anthropology together, how important the idea of collaboration has been to a central part of how we both work, which probably comes from the discipline of anthropology in trying to correct its early endeavors, where the anthropologist was like an accomplice to white colonizers who invaded foreign lands, made subjects out of colonized peoples. And I think anthropology now has really shifted to focusing and championing doing anthropology at home. Stress that the participants are no longer subjects, they're also collaborators. And it encourages participatory and self-reflexive projects, which is something that we're all trying to do here with the Intimacy Machine. And whilst most obviously you've worked with a team to produce it, the contributors of the data are also very much part of it. They're regular interlocutors. Each entry is sourced with credit. You keep them updated, and have continually asked for their consent and feedback in the development of the platform. And likewise, it aims to be beneficial for them. It's a place for them to share their research, and it's not just only taking from one side. And of course, like with putting bees at the center, I guess the ultimate aim is for them to be the collaborators as well, perhaps to the point where human involvement could completely step away. But maybe that's a bigger story.
No, but we're going there. Yeah, but as you said, collaboration has been central to Apian and also to the Intimacy Machine, and we've been collaborating extensively with Elaine Harris, and I've been collaborating extensively with you, and also much with Laurent the past last year. So now we'll go into it, and I will start sharing the platform, and we will explore it together. So let me get into that. There we go. So, welcome to the Intimacy Machine. We will navigate, we will do a walkthrough all together, we will exchange with Elaine Harris, who designed it, thought it through, and explain some of the content and go a bit through it. So, I will... Yeah, maybe we can just shortly describe the platform. So it's You see a lot of green. It's like a lot of white square in a green grid, and there's some in each square have some images or play button when it's sound that show a little clip of what's inside the data.
Maybe if I can intervene, I would say when you came to us with your project, you said you had like a big collection of data that you wanted to show to people, that you wanted to show a different way to navigate this data to motivate people and visitors to access the data, for people who have the knowledge and know it, and as well for people who will be more like a bit tourist, like just seeing stuff and wanted to know more. So we start to with this collection, and we had this visual ID. When I was a kid, I had like on my wall this kind of cupboard with like small box when you can put small stones or small stuff you found, and I think Joris had the same too. And it was this kind of with this kind of idea of collection of when you put stuff in a small box, and this layout came a bit of it to have like a huge grid where there is like every grid is a small box where you can have like a small gem inside it. So
yeah, to add to that, I did have a similar box of trinkets, and this adds to the notion of value. So while we're speaking, Aladdin is also navigating the grid a bit freely to show some movement there. But indeed, we spoke about a grid, a cabinet in which you can access all these little treasures. And we also spoke about metaphors that you also spoke about earlier, and thinking about ways to not propagate these metaphors that might be harmful or incorrect or practically incorrect. So we ended up not wanting to use black and yellow stripes or hexagon shapes. So in the end, we landed in this bright green color. Maybe, it's a bright green color that refers perhaps to quite nostalgically to computing in a way, maybe. Ari, take it away.
So here, Aladdin opened the machine. So basically, the grid work in two ways. There is like a kind of object next to each other in a grid, and there is like a grid with fix. So if we go back maybe to the main page, so when you move, like the content moved, but the grid is not moving. It's only when you stop to scroll that it will be fixed in place, and then you will see where is the limitation, the limit between the different objects. So it's in a way something with completely structured and a square, but at the same time it's always breaking when you are like moving into it and reconstructing when you stop. When you activate one grid or one machine, as we call them, the grid open, and then like a circle grow and show like a black room where there is a content. Mostly there are like image content in this room. This one is like a video machine. So there is a player and you can see the content playing now. On the top right corner, you have a small icon with, if you click on it, it will activate a panel who will show textual information about the content of the machine. So the machine are based like mostly visually. Then they have like a panel of information about the machine. Could be a link, or I will let Aladdin speak a bit more about the content. And there's another panel with a bit something more personal, like Aladdin writes something about the data.
Yeah, so for each, coming from this grid, you zoom. I'm trying to also describe the visual aspect of it. You kind of hover over a large grid. If you select an item, you zoom in, and we're seeing that now. Then there's another layer in each machine or in each cell which has text, and there's another layer of text, so it's a kind of zooming in and zooming out and hovering over a field. So perhaps that is a bit of a bee metaphor of ways of gathering data in a way that you could swarm or fly over information, and quite randomly or through learning to hover, find different pieces of information.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So if we go back on the main screen with the grid, you will see as well that there is like two green button, with one with EM and one with a menu icon. When you navigate the grid, this button will move as well. They are always like stuck on the border of the page, but you can play with them to move them. And this button are basically as well have action if you click on the IM button.
From a design perspective, I think these buttons and the hovering are intended to promote a playfulness or to engage with the information. So from a graphic design point of view, we aim at creating this interface in such a way that you find something to discover in it. Maybe it's not immediately clear, but as you go along, there's a playfulness to it which invites you, hopefully, to find your way.
Yeah, I think the question of game and playing was quite central in the design of this, like, and trying to find also a way of approaching this content, this data, not in a too linear fashion and not like in the academic version, while obviously we always source and bring the possibility to access this academic knowledge. And as Ari was talking about the button, maybe I will activate the first one on the right, which is basically another way of navigating the website, so a more conventional one by a list where you have directly the name of the content, being a video, images, a graph, and then the name of the people that created the content. So usually it's a team at a lab university. And he also tells you which type of machine it is, if it's like a video, if it's a sound, or if it's a graph, or if it's a slide of images. And I think it's quite important to acknowledge and notice that this is the first step, and we aim to grow as well the possibility of machine, like include live content at some point, or include also 3D models, and something we talked already a lot about it with all of us, and that we will build in the future.
Yeah. Maybe good to say about this second interface. So besides the grid interface, there is, like you say, a more conventional interface to access the machines, a menu, let's say. This one can be sorted by title, by author, by machine type, and you can also search in it. And this is also to facilitate different types of use, or maybe if you're highly informed about the type of data that is in there, you could also search it and find something specific you're looking for. So there's also a more directed way of navigating in this alternate menu.
So basically,
and brightly green. It's a very strong color green.
Yeah, and I use actually the navigation. I did a research, like looking for CO2 level, and then it shows like in this, when I typed bees, obviously there were mostly all the data coming, and then I just type CO2, and by clicking I will simply open the machine. So the same way that you can open it when you navigate it to the grid. So here I open a new page with a black background, and you can see on the image a graph showing, like, here it's the record of the level of CO2 inside a beehive over a period of 6 months in 2019. This was recorded at the EPFL in Lausanne, which is a university in Lausanne, Switzerland, by a team of researchers composed of Robert Mills and Raphael Barnack that generously provided the content for it. And this shows, this is the idea of graph is also really important for Smart Hive, because now it's a bit evolving, but at the beginning, mostly the content you were getting as a beekeeper was just a graph of like the daily activity of your beehive, like the difference in weight, the difference in temperature or in humidity, or even different type of data could be gathered. And here we can say that the graph offers to have an overview of the 6 months in 2019, how bee actually managed to change the level of CO2 according to their needs. And you can also click then on different or specific months, for example, and see how the graph reconstruct and rebuilds following maybe having years without something with that. I think it was a really nice reference with the grid, actually.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting to work with this graph. So we tried to find a way that it's a bit friendly to show this data. And so we work on this. I don't know if it's really working well with the Zoom connection, but there is an animation between each graph where the graph is erasing, and then all the axis, the coordinate are like redrawing to go to new place, and then the graph is drawing again on it with a good point. And this, so basically there's two ways. There's like the line who show the coordinate, and the coordinate themselves show really the crossing of the line, what are the data itself. So I don't know if Joris want to add something.
I think the graph offered interesting opportunity to rethink a bit how to visualize data. And from a graphic point of view, it was a bit of a discovery for us to not use all the lines that could be in the grid, but only the lines where there are data points. So this might seem like a small detail, but actually it points at something that Aladdin, you came to us and that we discussed, which we thought was very interesting, that this data, I keep calling it data, but this information could be accessed in different levels, and that because it is a public platform, you should allow, in a way, as much types of access as possible. So maybe someone wants to view or listen or engage with it for very different reasons than you intended. Maybe you just want to look at it because it's beautiful, or because it sounds beautiful, or you have your own interest in it, or structural thought about it to access it. And at the same time, it could be something which is highly informational. So another thing that also struck me was the quality of the data and research that you tap into, which I mostly learned by compliments that you kept receiving from researchers that you worked with. So I did want to point out this high quality of data raises the platform to, I think, very interesting level.
Thanks. And maybe I will slide to another machine. And as we said, so there's different type of machine, and I will go to one that we didn't explore yet. So we saw that there's video, there's slide images, that's quite classic, and there's also like some based on sound. So I will play a little bit of this one. Let me know if you hear something. It's bizarre, don't worry. So this is basically the thoracic vibration of a stingless bees. That was, so if you click, as we explained, if you click on the right top corner, you can have info about why you just listened or why you've just seen. And here is the thoracic vibration of a stingless bee that was recorded in studies by and provided generously by Michael Anse. So
I see the sign language interpreter making wing looking movements.
Yeah.
Is the sound indeed made by wings?
No, it's actually it's like measured with laser vibrometers. So it measures the vibration and it's directly stick to the back of the stingless bees in order to be able to record. And this is a way they use to communicate, because it's interesting to raise that, because we never forget that bees don't have ears, so they don't hear the sound as we do. They feel the sound with the entire body, so there's no point of entry for them about the sound. It comes from their hair, from the antennas, so they feel the sound properly. And this is a really important way of communicate for them in the inside of this black box that is the hive, because we used to represent some of the communication with a dance, which became quite famous, but this is a visual representation, right? And
from a design point of view, it's quite interesting then, or from a viewer point of view, like we're representing something that we measure as a sound, in this case, a recorded sound. But if the bees only feel vibration, there's already a translation. And it's a shame then that a website or a device could not vibrate already. Well, phones can, but we can't at this moment control it to the extent that we could really communicate or convey the vibration that happens that was recorded.
But I think you just opened like something to dive, like maybe on the app version one day, like if we can make it vibrate. And yeah, that's nice. And I think this leads us to the question of sound that quite fascinating about the world of bees. And from a really personal anecdote, I never really thought about the question of sound before I went to do fieldwork in Morocco. I never thought about it because I learned beekeeping with my grandfather, but he was totally deaf. So he never used any sound clues in his apiary. And when I did this fieldwork and I went there with Laurent Gudel, which is with us tonight, I think we realized interviewing a beekeeper called Hassan, Swaf Hassan, that use a lot of the sound cues to know these bees behave and to know how to act basically in this practice of beekeeping. And I think this is a good end for the navigation to now leave the floor to Laurent. We will play a piece that he composed, and then maybe I give him the microphone to him, or maybe you want to start straight away, Laurent, you decide.
Now I can speak a little bit. Do you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. I have also a little anecdote also, because when we went in Morocco with Aladdin, I never heard the sound of the inside of a beehive, and when I hear it for the first time, I was like, "Whoa, that's intense!" And also I was like, "It sounds a little bit like my music. Actually, it's like noise, drone, chaotic stuff." So it has a strong impression on me. So yeah, that's why we started to kind of mix also the sound of the bees and the music I usually do. So okay, I'll try to use the tape machine. Do you hear some sound?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Laurent. It was really nice. Really, really enjoyed it. I mean, as usual, I think that's why we got along with this kind of music and this kind of experience. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was fun. I know it's weird to do those kind of stuff on Zoom.
Yeah, it's a bizarre experience, right?
And I guess it also shows how this web platform and intimacy machine can be used for other kinds of, aesthetic encounters, sound encounters, and potentially how the project can evolve outside of just the platform.
Yeah, exactly. And how the data could be actually reroute and use it differently. And I think that was a good example because some of the sound come actually from some of the data. But yeah, I think I would like to say that it's definitely an ongoing platform, and the core of the project is the idea to update it on a regular basis and to follow like latest research and trying to build more closer collaboration. I think we started that recently with the EPFL in Lausanne and with the University of Graz in Austria, which quite exciting possible outcome with them. And so I really hope that the machine could be more polymorphous and take also like more physical shapes, like as an exhibition or a book. And then this will allow us not only to add machine on the website with Ari and Joris about live data or other type of possibility, but also include like haptic technology or the question of smell, or to broaden basically the spectrum of our investigation of the world of bees.
Yeah, and even though I mentioned at the start that this project has underpinnings in visual anthropology, I think actually the use of the word visual is also too limiting nowadays. But if we take it from this idea to mean that we're pushing for a move away from traditional text-based research, even though we do also have a text which underpins the platform as well, but we're trying to figure out what other kind of modes can make this more accessible to a wider audience through maybe different sensorial modes as well. And also, whilst the intimacy machine is supported by scientific data, the research in its original format is not always available, and its terminology can be very restrictive. And that's something that the platform tries to break down, and something that we've tried to do within the writing on the platform itself, and like shown in the visualization of the graphs. And I mean, I also won't lie, I'm not a bee expert. I'm becoming one. But through, I guess, like the way I've tried to contribute to the project is to try to break down some of this knowledge and take some of the ideas that are central to the intimacy machine and central to beekeeping and install them within like a wider context and hope to make it more accessible.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, before concluding, I also say, like, I don't know if Ari and Joris, so we have any final note you would like to add, or Laurent as well, there's space now, and then after I will briefly conclude and we will move also to the lounge if there's questions, because we don't really have time for the questions, but we're happy to take them later in the lounge room.
Yeah, I think we worked on this together, but you are the project owner and drive behind it. So maybe it's a good moment to congratulate you on the official launch moment. Say thanks for a very interesting and worthwhile and thought-expanding collaboration. Also, by the way, thanks iBeam and closed captioners and interpreters for a very carefully staged event and day. Maybe Ari, do you have something to add?
No, I say no, but I add something. I think that, as Aladdin said, what is kind of interesting is now it's a platform with like welcoming new machine and new way to deal with this data, and so it's like beginning of something. Is like we're launching something who invites to have more data, more collaboration, and this is always it's always super interesting. Congratulations, Aladdin, as well.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of us, then I would say, and thank you really much for that. And I think just to stress that again, but it's really the beginning of a project. And when the APFL agreed to collaborate with us, they asked me, like, we need you to be at least having this platform available for the next 5 years, because we have a 5 years term with our research and we need something on the long term. So yeah, it's just the beginning. And ultimately, I would just like to stretch the idea that the intimacy machine and the smart hive are not techno fixes. They're not here to replace our relationship with bees. They're here we need to use them in order to enhance them. And I don't want this to be just a footnote of it. And for me, it's really important to also understand all the question that brings using technology, especially when we talk about environmental issues. So I'm happy to continue this discussion alongside with all of you. And thank you very much again. And all IBM team, that has been amazing. All the translator, all the thing I learned through IBM fellowship was invaluable.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laurent. As usual. See you all in the lounge, and soon, really soon.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for day 3 of From the Rupture, Platforms for the People, launching new works by APN and Volumetric Performance Toolbox. It was a truly inspiring day, and thank you to all of our speakers. Please join us tomorrow for day 4, Saturday, February 20, State-Sanctioned Surveillance and Creative Opposition, Community Organizing in Digital Space, hosted by Nash Shared. We will be launching new works by Dylan Sung and Veil Machine in collaboration with Kink Out, with talks by Juno Mack, Laurie Jo Reynolds, Sasha Costanza Schock, Vincent Sutherland, and featuring conversations with Dylan Sung and Vincent Sutherland, and Nash Shared with Veil Machine. Thanks again, and see you tomorrow. Take care.